St. Patrick's Day headquarters. Details at mavispublichouse.com.
Broadcasting from the 92.3 The Fan Studios. Fueled by True North Convenience Stores. WKRK-FM and HD1 Cleveland Heights. An Odyssey Sports Station.
92.3 The Fan, 2020 Sports.
This 2020 Sports brought to you by Brunswick Automart. Save thousands below new car prices and over 350 premium certified and pre-owned vehicles at BrunswickAutomart.com. Cavaliers managed only 17 points in the second quarter at Brooklyn on Sunday. Luckily, in the second half, James Harden started to come up clutch for the Cavs.
Saraf clunks it off the backboard. The Cavs have the basketball on a 66-64 lead. Harden looks for more, draws the foul, knocks it down, and James Harden has a chance for the 4-point play.
Kersey Cavs, FanDuel Sports Network, Ohio. Good guys going to win at 106-102. First game since suffering that broken right thumb. Harden near triple-double form. 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists. Final day workouts, the NFL Scouting Combine, done on Sunday. Offensive lineman on the field at Lucas Oil Stadium. Many expecting the Browns to pick an offensive lineman with the 6th overall choice in the upcoming draft. Next up for the Browns and the rest of the NFL, the legal tampering window for free agents. That starts a week from today. Guardians doing split squad games on Sunday, and Goodyear beat the Rockies 8-3. Chase DeLauder been dealing with leg issues, pair of hits, including a 2-run homer in Scottsdale. Guardians fall to Arizona 9-6. Can now find 92.3 The Fan on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and get the best content from our shows each and every weekday. That's 92.3 The Fan on YouTube. Headline sports news every 20 minutes right here on 92.3 The Fan. From the University Hospital Sports Desk, I'm Jeff Thomas. Up next time for the Ken Carman Show with Anthony Lima here on 92.3 The Fan.
The Afternoon Drive.
The rule should be don't do something so stupid that it impacts next year as well.
Well, and so that's where I think a lot of people are so cavalier about this whole thing, is because it feels like 2027 is the true mission. Don't do anything to screw up the idea that if you see something you like in the 2027 class, you should be able to get it.
The Afternoon Drive. Weekdays starting at 2. We are Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan. The Ken Carman Show with Anthony Lima.
It's a big risk. It 100%. It is a big risk. Now, I would argue, is doing nothing risky. You know, Ken is really big on saying, don't waste my time, don't waste my time. As currently constituted, is this quarterback room going to end up ultimately being a total waste of time? Because I've heard some people think, and Ken was one of them, that Monken could be one and done if this quarterback room doesn't perform well this year. That would be a waste of time then.
I would argue Malik is a bigger risk than Deshaun was.
Bigger?
Yeah. Deshaun at least had a proven track record, albeit he had sat out a full season. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler, led the NFL in passing yards. Again, a lot of those came with the Texans going 4-12 and being a terrible football team. But yeah, I think Malik is a bigger risk than Deshaun.
This is Cleveland Sports Radio, 92.3 The Fan.
The Combine wrapping up in Indy, coming to a close. Are you any closer? Are the Browns any closer to figuring out where they want to go at number 6 overall, or even if they want the pick to begin with? Hello, everybody. Welcome in on a Monday. Your Cavaliers held on in a back-and-forth affair yesterday against the Nets. More on that a little bit later on. We are getting closer to March Madness. Is that on your radar yet, with the Buckeyes pulling off, I'd say, the unthinkable, but it's 3 straight years where they've been able to beat Purdue at home. It's good scheduling. You can get by a ranked team top 10 and help yourself out with a quad 1 win. We've got controversy starting to kick up even further with what's going on with other potential selections here in the draft. Anthony Lima, Owen is here, Young John, as well as Daryl Ryder, who's in for Ken Carman, who continues to be on assignment. Daryl, are you closer to who you want the Browns to take at number 6 overall?
Nope, not at all. I also think there's a for sale sign out on number 6. I think Andrew Berry would not have a problem sliding down a couple of spots, picking up future draft capital, likely probably for this year, because not a lot of teams seem to be inclined to want to give up a 2027 draft asset, considering what everybody is looking at for that class. So I think that that's going to be a challenge for Andrew Berry, but where they should go at 6 and 24 remains the same, and that's offensive line and wide receiver, mix and match, choose your own adventure, which way you want them to go there as far as the order goes. But That's I think where the obvious eyeballs are pointing.
Well, let's get to what some of the prevailing stuff has happened over the weekend. I know you and Nick Padone were in yesterday, and there seemed to be some rumblings down in Indy, according to Nick, and I've certainly heard others kind of say a lot of the similar things, that the Browns have been uber aggressive in communicating that they are looking to enhance that quarterback room. And I know there is an element of the fan base that immediately is going to recoil about that. Then you have the element of the fan base that is always nervous, a little skittish about a quarterback. We don't want to have to go after a different quarterback. Let's just keep what we have in-house. Ultimately, Daryl, do you have a sense of where the Browns are and where you are?
I don't think that they are satisfied with the quarterback room of Deshaun Watson, Shador Sanders, and Dillon Gabriel.
Which last year was considered maybe the worst in the NFL.
Well, take out Deshaun because he wasn't available, but throw in Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. And yes, you would be correct, Anthony.
Well,
by the way, the critics of that were absolutely proven to be correct because the Browns had some of the worst quarterback play we have seen since Spurgeon win.
Now, two of those guys were rookies, so you always have to allow some development here. Obviously, you can't find very many people in Northeast Ohio or with the Browns fans at large that feel good about one of those guys at all, and that would be Dillon Gabriel, who, just like Shador, he has not been really given a fair shot in this situation, considering all the moving parts last year. And then
I think the Browns should get on the phone and ask Kevin if he'd like Dillon, and then give it to him as a parting gift.
Do you think he truly likes Dillon Gabriel? You believe that?
Yeah, I do. I
do not. from the things that I had heard last year.
Well, I mean, he liked him initially, and then
I don't know.
And then he saw him on the field, and perceptions changed.
Did the perception change on Shador Sanders?
I think that fans have a higher opinion of Shador Sanders than the Browns and the NFL do.
But I guess I'd ask more specifically which fans believe that. Just because I think they're very split.
His fans, Browns fans, I think that the view on him is not as overwhelmingly positive. They see positive, but they also see the negative. They do see that, for as great as he can be in spurts, can he be that way on a consistent basis? And I think that the Browns certainly have some questions about that. Can he play winning football? And that also, to be fair to Shador, I think it remains to be seen, and he needs the opportunity because I don't think 7.5 games is long enough to be able to make an overarching declaration like that. He's a young player that has to grow, has to mature, and you also have to be fair to him and give him the opportunity to do that. You just can't say, yeah, he can't do it. But we're not behind the scenes. We're not in those meeting rooms, and we don't have copies of the playbook. He's going to have to learn a new playbook this year. There's probably not going to be much carryover from his rookie season, so he's going to have to go through that process all over again. And what you hope is that he learned from the process he went through as a rookie and the work that he had to put in. Hopefully, he takes that into account as he gets ready for the upcoming season. So he goes in there, I think it's April 6th, the first Monday there in April when the offseason program gets underway, to where he can really attack this thing and hit the ground running. Because, see, for all the talk about, Todd Monken hasn't had a face-to-face with Myles Garrett yet. Well, they're really not allowed to do, there's no obligation for Myles to go into the facility to meet with Todd Monken right now. That's against the collective bargaining agreement. So
wait, it's against the coach and a star player to have conversations?
To talk football. This is vacation time right now. You can, hey, how you doing?
Because I got video of Bijan Robinson and Kevin Stefanski together.
But you can't be going over playbook and all those, type of things. It's got to be very casual, informal, non-football related, those type of things, okay? Now, let's be honest about it. Does every team actually abide by that? my opinion, and I stress my opinion, underline it, bold it, whatever, is that, I'm sure that, Kevin Stefanski and Bijan Robinson talk a little football, but they're not supposed to, right? There's no assignments or anything like that. So it's not a big deal. I mean, obviously, Shador, first day that Todd was on the job, the Browns put the video out of, them meeting by chance, if you will, in his office. And then Todd, the famous, hey, we wanted to draft you in Baltimore thing. So, that's just kind of where I'm at with this whole situation. I apologize to the afternoon show yesterday, which really it took a lot for me to do that. It's very hard for me to apologize.
We don't like doing that on this show.
I know, but
where did this come from?
Well, I completely just blew off, threw a cold bucket of water on their notion that, hey, Kyler Murray would be a good option for the Browns at quarterback if he's available. And I was like, yeah, no way, not interested, whatever. And looking at the landscape right now, looking at the options, I don't know, maybe not the craziest idea in the world.
Well, more on that in a second here, because that's interesting. People hear the term Kyler Murray, and immediately, like I just saw Owen was shaking his head. I mean, it's somebody who, when he was at his best, what was it, 3 years ago? He absolutely was a top half of the league starter.
67% of his passes, 3,500 yards passing, and a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio.
Browns too good for that?
Please tell me the last Browns quarterback to do that with any semblance of consistency.
You guys remember when we had those quarterbacks that played on other teams, and they were like, look at the stats that he had a couple years ago, and then they brought him into Cleveland. They gave him $230 million guaranteed.
Oh, so you don't think they should bring in any guys that have had good track records at all in the past?
That's not what I'm saying.
So what are you saying?
That's a guy that I do not want to be around. That's a guy I don't want the organization to be around. That's a guy I don't believe in anymore. Never really did believe in.
Well, but that's kind of the debate I think a lot of teams that are desperate for a quarterback are having right now. We've just seen a bunch of quarterbacks the original team were out on.
Yeah.
And it started with Geno Smith, and then it went to Daniel Jones, and it went to Sam Darnold, who won a Super Bowl last year.
And if the Browns hadn't walked down the roads that they've walked down, we've lived the Browns' history now, and we know how it turned out. And if the Browns hadn't walked down the roads that they've been down, I might say, okay, let's kick the tires on a Kyler Murray. But here we are, knowing what we know about how the Cleveland Browns have operated for 30 years now. And
you're doing what I do, and I get yelled at for it.
Yeah.
But
I present a little different era than you do, though.
Yeah,
Darryl.
but the issue is, Owen, then how do they get the next quarterback? How do they get a good quarterback? They've drafted and failed. They've traded and failed.
If those are my only options, then I'll just say I'll see what Shador has. If those are my only options.
I wanted to get to that. I'm glad you brought it full circle back to Shador, because I had this thought yesterday as I'm kind of digesting everything from the combine. Obviously, everybody has a microphone in front of them, whether it's current players, whether it's former quarterbacks, whether it's guys that have been GMs in this league, guys that are strong evaluators, that people take credence in what they have to say or stock in what they have to say. And I came away thinking, man, this was the second straight combine week that went bad, I think, for Shador Sanders. And I know that that's totally unfair because Shador did not take part in the combine this year. He's no longer a rookie. But what I mean by that is...
why did it go bad for him? He didn't do anything this weekend.
Yeah, what I mean by that is what's interesting about the combine is you have perceptions going into the combine and then perceptions going out of the combine. And what changes, right? It's not just guys running around in their shorts, in their athleisure. It's not just guys doing all the interviews or the podcasting. It's that a bunch of the league's decision makers get together for 2 days, for 3 days, for 4 days, depending on when people no longer have the stomach to have the late nights in Indy. And they get hit with truth serum, and that is alcohol. And everybody talks in that league. That's just the way it goes every year in Indy. Remember, last year, leading up to the combine, it was, all right, Shador's going in the first round. Is he going to be the second quarterback taken? Where could he go? Is he going top 10? Is he going top 20? But he's a first rounder, right? Out of the combine, I can't find anybody that has a first round grade on Shador Sanders. What changed? Well, a bunch of the decision makers got together and started talking. Well, it happened again this year, and for the second straight week for Shador, it seemed like you couldn't find anybody that was ready to pencil Shador in as QB1 with the Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
And everybody seemed to continue to have the same train of thought. The Browns are going to be aggressive at their quarterback spot because they do not believe right now in what is there in that quarterback room.
Why should they? Why should the Browns be right now content with what they have in the quarterback room and believe that what they have is enough to win at a level that is required in this league?
Well, okay, I'll say Shador, and this is coming from me, Shador, and I thought all the rookies in different ways showed a little bit of flash, right? Most of them did, I should say. I mean, hell, even Riley Leonard in the final week of the year, he showed some signs. Jackson Dart, Tyler
Brandon
Shaw.
Whedon showed a lot of flash with the Browns, too. How'd that work out?
Well, but that's what I mean. I thought last year Shador showed some signs, but, we know statistically it was one of the worst quarterback seasons we've ever seen. But
he managed to be worse statistically than Dylan Gabriel.
I know, which then it does make you go back to what numbers are we using to measure some of this? Because I didn't see anything good out of Dylan Gabriel.
Right.
I saw one red zone touchdown where he kind of threaded the needle, and I was like, all right, there's some.
I'm going to say the supercomputer really processed that safety in New England well on the intentional grounding. That was just
worse than that.
That was just a piece of football brilliance. Good thing the Browns spent a third-round pick on him.
He had a screen pass that I thought was like one of the worst I've ever seen.
He had a screen pass thrown that, by the way, Shador Sanders threw for a 66-yard touchdown
right, yes.
that got thrown into the Jets bench.
So, with all that said, I want to know from Browns fans, are you coming closer to decision-making on not only what the Browns should do with number 6 overall, but what they should do at quarterback? 216-474-0092. I have a little bit clearer a picture of what they probably will not be doing at number 6. We'll get to all that straight ahead. We've got Zack Jackson with Combine Recap. He's one of those with the late hours. Burning the candle at both ends. He's on at 8:20. We'll get to all that coming up. Plus Lima Likes at 7:45. The Cavaliers also 1-1 this weekend, but boy, was it an entertaining 1-1. I'll explain all straight ahead on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
You have business. Call today to get a free estimate for your plumbing and electrical needs, or visit TriCountyElectricService.com.
When you want the latest on the Browns, we're the station you turn to first. 92.3 The Fan is Cleveland's home for breaking sports news. Your teams, your station.
A lot of names, a lot of rumors, a lot of scuttlebutt. That's why we say keep it locked in as Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan. For all this, we've got Zack Jackson at 8:20, who said last week when he was on the airwaves here and he had done some reporting, he said that option A would be Malik Willis. For the Cleveland Browns, we have one prominent reporter who says maybe not so fast. We'll get to that in a little bit. Daryl, I did ask you before the break, are you any closer? There are kind of two items here on the table. Are you any closer to who the Browns should take at number 6 now that we have all the scores, all the attributes, the dimensions, the interviews, a lot of reporting that's been done over the weekend? And then so too, are you any closer to knowing what the Browns are going to do at QB?
No, not. And that's going to be the fascinating part of this offseason, which really gets underway a week from today. Do they go out and trade for someone? Do they give Malik Willis the $25 to $30 million per year that he's rumored to be getting on the free agent market? Do they stand pat and go with another project, whether that's Ty Simpson, Drew Aller? A lot of conversation about him because of what he said at the Combine. A lot of folks got hooked by the memories of him wearing a Charlie Fry jersey down on the lakefront and all that kind of stuff. And
people said Drew Aller had a good had a good week.
Listen, I said this yesterday with Nick Padone. I wish Drew Aller well in the National Football League. I hope it's not in Cleveland.
Why is that?
Just too much here. It's too heavy a burden to carry.
Would you have said that about Bernie Kosar back when the Browns got him in the supplemental?
No, but the environment today is completely different. I said the same thing about Mitch Trubisky as well. I didn't want.
So
Mitch.
Now wait a second. I'm sitting in a city where we can't get a quarterback. We're looking to turn over every stone. We're desperate, and now you guys are eliminating. You guys are eliminating one state from the union. We couldn't get Joe Burrow either, who grew up, rooting for the Cavs.
I'd take Joe Burrow, but no, I'm over the hometown hero narrative, and I just think that there's too much here with that, right? Do you really want Drew Aller's family waking up after he loses to the Steelers to listen to you rip him for his Penn State-like performance against Pittsburgh that led to yet another loss to the Steelers? Do you really want that for Drew Aller's family to be hearing you just absolutely tear him to shreds? No,
what is interesting, the game has changed, obviously. I mean, these guys are now millionaires before they even come into the league, or at least they get a few paychecks that represent $1 million before they get in the league. What did he accomplish at Penn State, by the way, objectively? What did Drew Aller accomplish at Penn State?
Not much.
No, he obviously had a young John. You would know, right? Are you a Penn State fan? And you grew up in the greater Philadelphia area.
I went to Penn State, and Drew Aller did not live up to the hype, I would say. Now, you can say he went to the national semifinals. He beat SMU and Boise State to get there and threw a pick on the most important throw of his life. His best throw as a Penn State Nittany Lion came in his first career start as a sophomore against West Virginia, and he never really got better.
So certainly guys obviously get drafted, with they have their resumes intact, but the whole exercise that I think people miss is it's not about what bowl games or whatever you did just in college. It's also about what coaches think they could coach out of you and how you can get better. I do think there's a huge mistake in how a lot of fans address the draft compared to how I know coaches and evaluators look at the draft. And doesn't, by the way, mean those evaluators get it right. They get it wrong just as often as fans do.
Yes, just look at the volume of quarterbacks that have come through here since 1999. There's 42 of them.
Sure, but it doesn't mean like, oh, well, a guy didn't come through in some big moments in college. That means we rule him out. like we cross them off the list. You have to have a much more open mind. I think that's one of the things I keep coming back to when I see, if you were to poll fans on every available quarterback, whether it's in the draft or whether it's in free agency or whether it's even somebody you could trade for like Mac Jones. Well, the majority of fans are against every single quarterback. Like if I bring every quarterback and put it in front and run a poll.
Except for one.
Which is
Shador Sanders.
No, I think he's right now. Wait, you think Shador has
fans love them some Shador Sanders? Come on, you say one bad word about
faction.
Shador, your mentions just go nuclear.
See, I think this is the internet speaking, Daryl.
Yes.
I think the internet is clouding you because without a doubt they have the most passionate take on their quarterback of any fan base I can remember since going back to Baker. It has to be Baker had to be the last one.
The Baker Bros
that had that kind of percentages, but. That's also a very loud, and I have to say minority, because I have to say I did not see it represented in the stands last year. I mean, the place was empty. Where were all the Shador fans?
That was one of the biggest surprises from last season for me. Is
they weren't flying in like they were to Boulder.
No, they weren't. That stadium was half empty down the stretch with Shador starting. Even for his first start, I thought the place would fill up for that. It did not. Honestly, Anthony, I was shocked by that. And that should have gotten the Browns' attention, right? You have this overwhelmingly popular player, especially on social media and the internet circles and all that, right? The Shador stands and whatnot. And yet he could not fill that stadium, not even just for his first start, his debut start. Couldn't pack the place. That should have gotten the Browns' attention. That's
not going to be the moneymaker they maybe thought it would by taking a flyer.
Remember when they benched Brian Hoyer for Johnny Manziel because they were selling so many jerseys in the team shop, and that's what the business people in the building felt that the fans really wanted to see. And then, if my memory serves me correctly, I think he got one first down. It didn't cross midfield against the Bengals. And basically the entire offensive line said, yeah, the drunken fool you're looking for is over there. Like, yeah, that's, so I just, that should hopefully was a little bit of a wake-up call.
Well, you can't make any of these decisions just based on hype, just based on jersey sales. That can never be the guiding light.
Or a homeless guy.
I don't know. Maybe he gave him good intel before. We only know about that one selection. 216-474-0092. So over the weekend, this is one of the things that stood out in terms of a storyline that I think absolutely impacts the Cleveland Browns is because I asked you, is there any clarity for what they might do at 6? And I went into the break saying, I kind of wonder if what transpired over the last week ruled out wide receiver at number 6 for the Browns. So what I mean by that is I'm not somebody who was panicking over the 4.52 40 time that Carnell Tate was clocked at. I obviously watched Carnell Tate this year, really liked him, did not remotely put him in the category of Jeremiah Smith.
Can
like
I tell
that
you what
type
happens
of a
now after that? Here's what happens now. They go back, all right, and they put on the Ohio State tape of him, and they rewatch it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll go to the pro day. He runs the 40 again. Check the time, see how it compares to the combine. But it all comes back to the tape, okay?
Well, what is it? Does the tape say to you number 6 overall? Because that's where I stop short.
Yeah, I'm leaning more towards either offensive tackle at 6 or you trade back.
And I think it's going to be offensive tackle.
I don't like the idea of taking a wide receiver there at 6. Considering where the Browns are at in the team building process right now, if they had an established quarterback, if their offensive line was set, then yeah, I'd have no issue. Go ahead, take a receiver at 6, right? Part of the missing piece to the puzzle. The problem for the Browns is they have so many missing pieces to the puzzle right now. I don't know that just taking a wide receiver at 6. I keep going back to what Phil Savage said years and years ago when he took Braylon Edwards. And he realized, he said something, I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said something to the effect of, one of my regrets is I went for the dessert before the meat and potatoes in the draft. In other words, I drafted Braylon Edwards instead of fortifying the trenches. And ultimately, He had that 1 year in 2007.
Pro Bowl year.
Pro Bowl year, 1,000-yard receiver. But all in all, that pick ended up being a flop for the Browns, right? And so I feel like there's a lesson in there, and that is you go for the meat and potatoes first, and the Browns need meat and potatoes. They need to fortify the trenches desperately. So I lean more heavily towards offensive line, get your left tackle, and I hope it's a true left tackle, not a right. I don't believe in what Andrew Berry believes in. If you can play right tackle, you can play left tackle. Footwork and technique are completely different. Right tackle to left tackle, completely different. I do not subscribe to that theory that Andrew Berry has. So get a true left tackle. And look, hopefully the board falls in a manner in which a team wants to come up to number 6. And, Andrew Berry can exploit that and slide down a couple of spots and still get his tackle or get the player that he wants. Because they have a lot of holes to fill. They're not going to fill them all in free agency. I also said yesterday, I do think that Andrew Berry's sandbagging us a little bit with his comments at the Combine about how they're not going to be as active this year in free agency. They'll be more active than they were last year, but next year is the year where they'll be, in his words, hyperactive. I think Andrew Berry's going to be really active this offseason. Trades and free agency to fill a lot of these holes, because I do not believe that the Browns are prepared to stomach a top 3 draft pick resulting 2026 football season. I don't believe that. They want to win some games this fall.
All right, there's a lot of stuff there. 216-474-0092. I also want to get into Cavs coming up because they had a slugfest on Friday night in Detroit, and they left that game, I think, almost more confident than some of the Cavs fans that I hear, even at this station. That one prominent NFL writer says, not so fast, my friend, on Malik Willis. We'll also have Zack Jackson coming up at 8:20, Lima like 7:45. All straight ahead on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan, XTENDAV.com. Extend.
starting at just $22 a month at any Greater Cleveland Clean Express Auto Wash location. Or treat yourself to the very best signature, cleanest Unlimited Wash Club membership for just $42. For locations, hours, or to buy online, visit cleanexpresswash.com today.
Talk sports deep into the Cleveland night. Overtime with Jake Volnick. Weeknights at 7. Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
All right, get back into the Browns coming up in the 7 o'clock hour because plan A, according to Zack Jackson, was Malik Willis. Somebody says not so fast. One of the national prominent NFL writers who's in the combine. It's what I love about Indy is just the people getting together, and you're actually getting some little nougats, some creamy nougats. Ken is not here to do the voice. Daryl is in for Ken today. So
the overpricing of quarterback prospects continues, though.
Yeah. Well, why not? There's a third of the league. Would you say a third of the league is desperate for quarterbacks? Might even be more at this point. Browns are not alone. That's what makes a lot of this intriguing.
But they are alone because they've been desperate for 27 years. I don't think there's another team in the National Football League that has gone that long without an extended franchise quarterback.
Certainly,
maybe Miami and the Jets, but I still feel like the Browns are the leaders in the clubhouse there.
But there will be a lot of competition. Speaking of competition, right now in the Eastern Conference, things getting very, very interesting as Detroit's still the 1 seed. They had that Thursday night, and I called it a slugfest. I mean, that game, part of it was you had some issues, some malfunctioning with the buzzer, but the game went 3.5 hours.
Hang on a second. I think I still hear the buzzer all the way from Detroit.
Oh, that had to be annoying. Luckily, I was at a crowded bar. We didn't really hear any of that.
What was it yesterday? The shot clock wasn't working?
Yet another issue. But
you know what? Are teams doing this to mess with the Cavs? Is this being done deliberately to mess with the Cavs?
I don't know.
These arena malfunctions that we're seeing.
Gives them more time maybe to develop the chemistry that they're trying to develop on the fly. Because the Detroit game was awesome. I didn't even care. I know they lost the game, and people are losing their minds because when you invest 3.5 hours, it starts to become like a football game, like an event. So I saw people after the game saying, that's why the Cavs are going nowhere in the playoffs. I'm like, you're judging that game? If anything, I think that game has planted the seed of doubt in the other team, the home team for that game, Detroit, because you're hard-pressed to find people that are confidently, much like Ken is penciling in the Cavs. I'm not seeing a lot of the national guys that are ready to just throw Detroit in that situation. But obviously the Cavs are not going to catch them. They're 8.5 games out. And now what's most important to the Cavs above and beyond anything else is their health and making sure that they're going to be able to ratchet up at the right time. A month and a half from now, that's what's going to be important for the Cavs. Obviously they come back yesterday in a game that, there was some mail-it-in moments on defense. But then when they really needed it, Keon Ellis and Evan Mobley providing rim protection and getting steals. Quarter. Yeah, and you know what? James Harden, I know there was commentary after the game like, I could tell that he was a little off. I still think that he was front and center, comfortable, playing the point, even with the issue with his other hand, with his off hand, his off finger. So altogether, I come away from this weekend going, yeah, I think the Cavs are a team nobody wants to play. And as long as they're healthy, which has been a huge if and a huge storyline the entire season, I continue to be excited about what I think their ceiling is come playoff time.
The fact that James Harden is going to play through this, didn't want to have surgery, and I agree with you. I thought he was fine yesterday. I really did. They're probably – I still think they can get the 2 seed, but I don't know if I want them to get the 2 seed, though. Like, I'm just looking at the way this conference is laying out, okay? And I'm all about positioning. And I kind of feel like they're in a better spot being the number 4 seed than they are the number 2 or the number 3. Now, I think they can overtake the Knicks and the Celtics for that number 2 seed, but I'd probably rather face the Pistons in round 2 than have to worry about the Knicks or Boston. Boston worries me.
And they're going to be getting back Jason Tatum maybe by the end of the week.
The Knicks.
So we added Harden. They added Tatum.
Yeah, the only reason the Knicks bother me, it's the psychological thing. But man for man, Cavs are the better team over New York. They're the better team over Detroit. You know what? I loved what came out of the Cavs locker room after that game. The confidence. Like that's I think part of what this team had been missing, that confidence. And I understand why that confidence would have been difficult. You keep getting bounced in the playoffs in rather short order, and it's lopsided while you're getting bounced. It's not like you lost a bunch of nail-biting games. No, you're getting boat raced in these games. So the fact that, and Chris Fedor wrote about it after the game, that the Cavaliers came away, albeit with a loss in Detroit, they came away thinking, yeah, they're not beating us in a 7-game series. And it's that, and I think they're right, a full-strength Cavalier team will take that Pistons team to the woodshed. I mean, good for JB, good for the Pistons. Congratulations on your 1 seed. I just remind everybody, the Cavs were the 1 seed last year. They started 15-0. I was writing them into the NBA Finals. I thought they were the team to beat, and they absolutely got smoked by the Pacers in the second round. I think the Pistons are going to suffer a similar fate.
Chris Fedor had in his story on Friday night, prevailing feeling inside the Cavs locker room was Detroit can't beat them in a 7-game series. Now, what's interesting is the way you're talking about Detroit is how still a lot of people talk about the Cavs.
Yes.
And I even saw it this weekend, which I thought was so interesting. The Cavs have so materially changed the construction of their roster almost overnight, 3 weeks ago, in adding Keon Ellis and Schroeder. And you can already see the dramatic difference in them. And then it was nice that they were able to
look how important
take care
Ellis
of
was
the
in the
Knicks.
fourth quarter on yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge. They don't win that game without him.
And they were getting nothing out of DeAndre Hunter, obviously. So they lose the size that they had in Hunter, but he had been playing so poorly, and now he's out for the year, so it's a moot point. That Ellis, and then Schroeder, who had some mishaps late in that game in an overtime against Detroit. So much so that he got called out by a fan. He actually quote tweeted the fan and was like, You're right. Like he did some soul searching after that game, because that dude is one of the more competitive dudes in the NBA and really the world.
Which, by the way, that's rare for a pro athlete to do that. They tend to get a little sensitive.
Yeah, normally it's defensive.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, no, you're right.
Doesn't it feel like there is a change in attitude with this team, especially since these trades? And it's not that Harden's like a tough guy, but it does seem like it's, hey, we've got some nicks, but it's get out there and play through it anyway. And then Ellis does bring some air, not a bad boy. He's not a bad boy Pistons guy, right? But
he can defend the guards.
But he's tougher. Schroeder is a great defender. Jalen Tyson's addition to the lineup this year feels a little tougher than what they've been rolling out the
100%.
last 3 seasons.
100%. They've already changed. This Cavs segment brought to you by Surfside Hard Iced Tea. That is the one thing that sticks out. And I know they had the bad Oklahoma City loss, whatever. They're just trying to figure out their chemistry on the fly. It's very late to be doing this. And by the way, Boston's going to be doing it too. I know Tatum's been there for a long time. But, the way that the Celtics have been successful this year, throwing Tatum in that is going to mess up some of the stuff they've been doing. But obviously you're worried about the ceiling. So it's not like you're going to tell them not to come back. With all that said, we're sitting here. Are any of you guys, you and your friends, your text threads, or in your interactions on social media, how much do you guys care about the seeding right now when it comes to the Cavs? I gotta be honest, all season I haven't really been thinking about it at all. Is it time to lock in when it comes to that stuff?
I'm thinking about matchups. I'm thinking about how round 2 is going to play out. Because you never want to assume anything.
Round 2's the bugaboo right now.
What's that?
Round 2's the bugaboo. We can't get through round 2. So I agree with you, Daryl, on the. I'd rather have the Pistons in round 2.
Yeah, I'd rather Detroit. Again, it's not that I don't think that the Cavs are capable of beating the Knicks, but there is, I think, some psychological trauma there that still resides.
I'd rather do that later than
deal with that in the conference final, assuming the Knicks get that far. Same thing with Boston. I'd rather face them in the conference final. Give me the Pistons in round 2.
What I'd hate to do is have to play Boston and New York.
Yes, that would not be fun.
That's something that could happen if this starts to shuffle the way that it might.
Yeah, that would not be fun for the Cavaliers. But I would much rather play Detroit in round 2. I'm not concerned about seeding.
If the season were to end right now, you'd be going up against Toronto Raptors. Now you're 0-3 against them this year. You can look at each individual game and say, oh, this guy was missing, this guy was missing.
Different teams.
And now it's a completely different team anyway. So I don't know how much stock you put in that.
Yeah, I mean, didn't LeBron's teams lose to the Raptors in the regular season and just absolutely smoke them in the playoffs? And by smoke, I mean sweep them 4-0, and the games weren't even competitive.
Cost Dwayne Casey his job.
Yeah, it did. That was where the nickname, LeBronto was coined. But, those were the LeBron years. Can you feel that confident this time around? As yesterday they got the victory with Donovan Mitchell on the bench. 216-474-0092. So last week we had heard plan A was Malik Willis. This week, not so fast. Who is for the Cleveland Browns as Combine Week finally coming to a close in Indy? You're listening to Anthony Lima and Dale Ryder in for Ken Carman. Hour number 2 straight ahead on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
2027. He knows he's got to hit on his draft picks. And the good news is they've got a good base of talent out of last year's draft.
Listen for the MMQB's Albert Breer, Tuesdays at 5:20 on Cleveland's Sports Radio, 92.3 The Fan.
Hey, the Buckeyes got that quad one win. Lima likes for the first time in a long time. I watched that game yesterday.
Love quad one win, Tom.
Nothing like the Boilers getting me pumped up about college hoops again.
Ohio State has a basketball team
They
still?
do. They do. It's a nice crowd yesterday.
It's the first thing, that's the first time I've heard about Ohio State basketball in a positive fashion, and feels like eons.
Hey, Julian Sayin was...
They finally beat somebody?
Sitting courtside with one of the guys pumping out the money to guys like Julian Sayin, one of the Schottensteins. So that was nice to see, but we'll get to that in Lima Likes about 40 minutes from now. And the results are in from a diabolical poll question that I unleashed on Northeast Ohio on Friday. We'll get to that coming up. Anthony Lima and Daryl Ryder is in for Ken Carman. Owen is here. Young John, who I might have to throw this in Lima Likes as well. He got the sandwich I told him to get. It's part of the Cleveland indoctrination. He told me the price tag for that sandwich. I was like, "Whoa, that's what we're up to now."
Yep.
But
inflation.
We will get the results on that, the poll question, but we got to get right to it because Combine coming to a close in Indy. I know there's still things going on, right, Daryl?
Yeah, there's
how long is the Combine? Everybody tells me we've never had less people participate in some of the events in the Combine, and they showed the poor offensive lineman opportunity for the media. Like nobody was there. I'm like, all of Cleveland should have been there for that.
Well, here's the thing. Like that, a lot of outlets just don't have the budget to stay there for the full week, and a lot of the folks go there for the GMs and the coaches and the quarterbacks, and those are early in the week there. And typically, the Saturday and Sunday media availabilities are less attended by the media, just because, again, a lot of folks don't have the budgets to spend more than 3 or 4 days in Indy, and it's unfortunate because when you think about like where the Browns are at, I mean, goodness, we've been talking about it for what feels like months now, even though we're only March 2nd. But all the needs the Browns have up front, waiting on the decision from Joel Bitonio, which is going to come within the next week. And then, whatever trades, I think Andrew Berry needs to come up with another Wyatt Teller type of a trade where you're giving up a 7th-round pick and you get a player like Wyatt Teller, and that's going to be hard to do. Kudos John Dorsey for pulling that one off. Andrew Berry's going to need to do the same thing. They need 2 tackles. They need 2 guards, potentially. You got to look at depth as well. So there's a lot of needs just in one position room, right? We haven't even talked about replacing David Njoku. Haven't really talked about outside of the number 1 wide receiver, who's going to be behind that number 1 wide receiver in Jerry Jeudy, because they still need help there. They might need a 3rd running back. Certainly the quarterback we talk about ad nauseum. So just on the offensive side alone, right? That's half the team. And then defensively, okay, maybe you need another linebacker. Maybe you, with JOK and the news coming out that his career may or may not be over, but it doesn't sound like he's going to be able to play here in 2026. So you might need another linebacker. You also need safety help. You also need a nickel as well as some cornerback depth.
Terrell just named 30 guys that the Browns need all of a sudden. And here I was 2 weeks ago saying they're not that far away because of this loaded defense.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of needs. Now, you prioritize those needs, right? And, some of those, especially on the defensive side of the ball, those needs, aren't as high of a priority as the offensive line, number 1 wide receiver, quarterback, right? But they are needs, and you're going to have to fill them. So that's why when I was really surprised last week when Andrew Berry at the Combine was like, I don't know, this is the year we're going to be all that hyperactive in free agency. No, I think they're going to be very hyperactive in free agency because they have to be. They have so many needs on the offensive side of the ball, and I realize you can't fill all of them perfectly in one offseason, but with 10 draft picks, Barry's got to really chip into those.
Well, one of those needs, according to some of the fan base, not according to others, would be adding to the quarterback room in a big way, and there's been a lot of buzz about that.
Who says they don't have to add to the quarterback room?
Well, if you think Shador should be QB1 and that case is closed, like, what do you care about anybody else behind him?
Well, I don't think that the case is closed. I am being very consistent in saying that I do believe he should get a fair opportunity to compete for that job. I'm not saying hand it to him, make him earn it. But also, let's not do the farce that we did last year where you're saying, oh, yeah, Shador's part of the four-man quarterback competition. Meanwhile, he's catching footballs from ball boys because we don't have enough receivers for him to throw to during training camp. And also, every quarterback got first-team reps leading up to training camp except Shador Sanders. And then training camp comes, and again, every quarterback's getting first-team reps that's available to practice except Shador Sanders. But yet you're going to sit there and tell me you had an honest four-man quarterback competition? You didn't. Shador, the plan last year was to redshirt Shador. They didn't want to openly come out and say that, okay? Meanwhile, ownership's out there. Yeah, we're going to see both rookies this year. Like, ownership's plan was not what I think the football people wanted to do, because I think the football people didn't want to play Shador last year, but ultimately they ended up playing him.
Well, this came out over the last few days. So Jeremy Fowler, who we've had on, always been pretty dialed in when it comes to the Browns. He says on ESPN.com that Malik Willis, his market, has been a prominent topic this week in Indy. This is what I love, when everybody gets together and actually starts sharing what is credible information from actual decision makers in the league.
It's because the true serum is flowing in Indianapolis.
That's right. He says, but a team offering him $30+ million doesn't seem realistic. So this is important for Browns fans who kept balking. I know the afternoon show, they have been scratching their head at the $30 million number. It says many front offices believe the more accurate comp is Justin Fields' deal with the Jets last year, 2 years, $40 million. Could that jump up due to cap inflation and multiple suitors? Sure. A range of $20 to $25 million annually is certainly a good starting point. Then goes on to say expect at least 2 and possibly several teams to be involved on Willis. Miami definitely in. We've been hearing that from day one.
Right.
Arizona is combing the market too, but it doesn't seem likely that Willis will end up in Cleveland. He throws that in there at the end.
I don't think it's going to end up here either. That doesn't mean that the Browns should not kick the tires and try and make it happen. Although I'm again not crazy about committing that kind of money to a guy with a resume that's basically the mirror image of what you already have in Shador Sanders. Like, that just doesn't make fiscal.
It seems like right now
it
his
doesn't
image
make fiscal sense.
See, I would take issue with that. It does seem like the way they're talking about Malik Willis. Granted, he's had 4 years, right, in the NFL to learn and develop.
Maybe he's the next Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, maybe. So it's really tough to say. It's tough to have any definitive conclusions on someone who started so few games. But that also, the mystery, the what's behind door number 3, that I think is why he's about to capitalize in a big way, because the very few moments that anybody has gotten to see him over the last 2 years, he has definitely demonstrated that he's formidable. I mean, he's rolled off a bunch of big runs. He's had, these nice outings against Baltimore, and coming in the way he did last year against Chicago, both nationally televised games, both in cold weather games, both in do or die games for his team. Now, I know they lost both of those games, but it certainly wasn't his fault if anybody actually watched the tape. So
clearly the Packers think Jordan Love is better than Malik Willis.
Sure. I think everybody
hit the market, right? No, I agree. I'm just making the point that, let's also not act like that Malik Willis is like the next Tom Brady or whatever.
No, I don't think anybody's saying that. If he was the next Tom Brady, we wouldn't be looking at 25 to 30 million. I mean, 25 to 30 million, I think this is the important thing. People get lost in those numbers. Those seem like big numbers, although
they are.
Are they when Justin Fields got 20, I ended up what? He got 30 million guaranteed.
Last time I checked, 25 is greater than 20 million. So,
yeah, it's a year later.
Yeah.
The cap went up. Big time. It's always going to be greater. And we're going to put the next Malik Willis next year could be Anthony Richardson, right? If he got to free agency. That's how this works. If Anthony Richardson gets into some games and plays well.
I'm fairly confident that Anthony Richardson is not going to get that kind of money.
I don't think you can say that anymore. I mean, I think what we're learning is now we've got more projects that, over time are not going to hit with their first team and then now become available. And I think that's why you're seeing NFL GMs have to be a little more open-minded on this, because a lot of guys coming out might not necessarily be ready. So you get the added benefit of having them get the development elsewhere. And maybe while your house isn't in order, eventually, if it does become in order and you get the right coach, now that's when you pounce on a guy that may have failed in his first go-around. I think that's what you're seeing. More and more teams are open-minded with.
Well, and I think this is something the Browns need to figure out when it comes to Shador Sanders. Is Shador, who's on that 4-year rookie contract, okay, there's no fifth-year option on it, is he a player that they can develop into the guy? You know what I'm saying? So do they need to just buy some time here over the next year or two until Shador really is ready? Because he got thrown into the fire last year. Like, let's be honest
100%.
about that. Got thrown into the fire, asked to learn and do a lot of stuff that he had never been asked to learn and do in his life. It was a little bit of a fire hose being on the receiving end of that. But that is something that, forget about, should Shador be handed the starting job this year? To me, the question that has to be asked by the Browns internally is Shador a guy we can develop into being the guy?
All right, 216-474-0092. You heard the thoughts right there on Malik Willis. Jeremy Fowler says the Browns not likely. What does that mean for Cleveland if they're not a part of the Malik Willis sweepstakes? Well, we'll get to that coming up next. Want to hear from the fans, as well as a diabolical poll question I asked on Friday, and the results are in. The Browns fans have spoken. Boy, they'd rather miss the playoffs with the current quarterback room, except for make the playoffs with Deshaun Watson. Couldn't believe the results that came in. Could you believe them? That's all straight ahead on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan. It is time to truly look at the real estate market. Seems like
Max 9-6. Daniel Spino, who's been battling injury since 2022, got the start when one scoreless inning. Now you can find 92.3 The Fan on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to the best content from our shows each and every weekday. That's 92.3 The Fan on YouTube. Headline sports news every 20 minutes right here on 92.3 The Fan. From the University Hospital Sports Desk, I'm Jeff Thomas.
Got Lima Likes coming up 20 minutes from now. Oh, I'm excited about today's edition. Big time. You ever have a chance, Daryl, to raid an NFL player's closet?
No, but I am aware of a closet getting raided recently.
We will get to that. Lima Likes in just about 20 minutes. Also, we have an event launch some 20-plus years in the making. I'll explain that. We'll start the countdown. Where will you be when you're 62 years old, Daryl? For you, you'll be even older. We'll get to that coming up next. So,
well, wait, will I be 62 or I'm going to be old?
You're going to be even older.
You asked me where will I be when I'm 62. So how am I going to be older than 62?
I'll explain it all the way coming up. So we just had a conversation off the air about how I feel like people are way too stubborn on quarterbacks right now for a team and a fan base, an organization that should be as desperate as ever. And Ken gets really upset and calls me desperate every day for wanting a quarterback. And I'm like, how could a Cleveland Browns fan not be desperate for a quarterback?
I'm sorry, do you watch the rest of the NFL and how fun it is to watch? And then you go to a Browns game or you turn on a Browns game and you see how ugly, awful, incompetent, boring, and stupidiculous that it is? Watching the Browns try and play offense in a league in which the rule book is written where you should be able to score 20 points with your eyes closed. The Browns can't score 17 points with their eyes open. Like, it's embarrassing how bad they are offensively. And historically, they have been. They've only had 8 seasons since this team has come back where they've averaged more than 20 points a game in a season.
And you'd almost, and we've had good offensive lines. We've had good offensive line players. We've had
your first Hall of Famer in the expansion era. No disrespect to Joe Thomas. We all love Joe. But your first Hall of Famer in the expansion era is a left tackle. Think it like a left tackle.
But it just
unfortunately, Joe couldn't catch passes. Joe couldn't run with the ball. Joe couldn't throw the ball.
Well, it just underscores that, the Browns have been dealing with, they've had an elite defense for most of the last, 3 years, really since Jim Schwartz had taken over. It's gotten them nowhere. Yeah. They've had really good offensive lines, and outside of the Baker run and then that stretch run out of Joe Flacco, you've been irrelevant at the end of the season. You've had great to elite running back play when you had Nick Chubb in there, and still...
I'm old enough to remember when the Browns could return kicks for touchdowns. Thank you, Josh Cribbs.
Yeah.
And Travis Benjamin.
So it just
unfortunately, that's all they were.
Well, right. So
those teams were able to do.
Giuseppe, come on, that one time.
So all I'm saying is, you should be desperate for a quarterback, and you shouldn't just be content with quarterback rooms that put you in the bottom, in the basement of what we saw last year, which, whether it was Joe Flacco, whether it was Dylan Gabriel, or whether it was Shador Sanders, you had the worst quarterback play in the league last year.
I know. Think about it. The best quarterback play the Cleveland Browns have gotten in the expansion era was 5 weeks of Joe Flacco. Now, honorable mention goes to Derek Anderson in 2007 and Baker Mayfield in 2020. But the best, most fun, most explosive quarterback play this franchise has had since Bernie Kosar, okay, I'll give Vinny Testaverde because they made the playoffs that 1994 season, is 5 weeks of Joe Flacco. Just allow that to marinate for a minute. That's how bad it's been.
Well, so then why, Daryl, should a desperate fan base, why do I continuously hear from everybody no's on every quarterback option to try to figure this position out?
I don't know, but I'll just caution people about this. Yes, the Browns are desperate. They should be desperate. 100%. Okay? They absolutely got to solve that. They're dead where they stand until they do. Okay, doesn't matter what type of elite defense they put together. Doesn't matter what type of elite offensive line they put together, running it, whatever. They are dead where they stand until they get the quarterback figured out. That being said, there are lessons to be learned. You cannot make emotional and desperate decisions. You have to be very, very thoughtful when you do this, because if you don't, you end up in the situation you find yourself right now, where you have a $230 million quarterback on your roster that people are now talking themselves into, oh, he can be good this year. He was a perennial Pro Bowler 6-7 years ago, and he led the NFL in passing 6-7 years. Yes, that was 6 and 7 years ago. Since then, broken shoulder, 2 Achilles tears, an 11-game suspension, hasn't played a full season since. He's missed 2 full seasons, okay? No, Deshaun Watson isn't going to be anything this year. And that's not me throwing shade at Deshaun or hating on Deshaun. No, that's this little world that I like to live in called reality. Now, if he's able to go out there and do it this year, okay, and show him he can still do it and have, God bless him, great. But I'm not going to sit here and sell Browns fan on, yeah, Deshaun Watson's going to be the answer this year. He's going to be healthy coming. Those Instagram videos, man, boy, does he look good on Instagram. Are you watching these reels on Instagram of him running the cones and doing the 3 and the 5 and the 7-step drops and throwing on air to whatever coach is helping him out in the offseason? Boy, does Deshaun Watson look good. He's going to be the man for the Browns. He's going to be back like he was with the Houston Texans. I can't sell Browns fans on any of that.
No, but what does that say?
But you're so desperate that you're ready to cling to that.
What does it say about the existing situation and setup in your QB room that anytime we have a national guy on and we say, hey, if it's an even fair and square quarterback competition between Deshaun Watson and Shador Sanders, they almost all say, oh, yeah, Deshaun Watson would beat him.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? Everything you just said about Deshaun Watson.
Which is why I have said that I feel like fans and even some media have a higher opinion or view of Shador Sanders as an NFL quarterback than obviously the rest of the NFL had, and now the Cleveland Browns. Remember, the Browns aren't going to sit there and trash their own guy or criticize their own guy or lay out there all his deficiencies in his game and what. No, they're going to build the young man up. There were positive things that you saw from him last year that were very exciting, a lot of exciting plays. That's, to me, the separator between him and Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel put me into a coma, whereas at least with Shador Sanders, I'm watching to see if he's either going to lose 20 yards on a play or he's going to throw a 50-yard bomb down the field. Like, there's at least some engagement and attention to be paid with Shador. But, like, the question that the Browns have to ask themselves is, can we develop Shador into a winning quarterback? In other words, can we have him be mostly, if not all good, instead of where it's like now it's kind of like a 50-50 proposition? You're going to get the explosive plays from Shador, but then you're just going to get the drive killers from him too.
Well, with this defense, you just need, right now, you need like a game manager, mistake-free guy to just allow your defense to win games. And that was like a lot of rookies, Shador was making not just oh it's a mistake here or there. It was the cataclysmic mistakes where you looked and said, what was he looking at?
Right.
What did he see there?
The throwing across your body.
Way too fast for him.
Yeah, you're not at Colorado anymore. You can't. This is the National Football League. You can't do that stuff. I go back to, and it's a bad analogy, but I keep going back to this. When it was one of Johnny Manziel's first starts. It was at Buffalo. The press box is in the corner, so you can see everything develop. And it was like the second play of the game, and Manziel does a rollout to his right, and there's like 40 yards of turf in front of him. Not a soul to be seen, right? And he starts to run. I'm like, oh, he's going to tuck this and try and make this a big play, okay? It was a 2-yard gain. They closed on him so fast. Now, at Texas A&M, that's a 15, 20-yard gain. In the National Football League, it's a 2-yard gain. And that's when I was like, yeah, this ain't going to work. That was the moment I knew Johnny Manziel wasn't going to work in the NFL. And that might sound grossly unfair, but I was right, okay? Now, with Shador, I don't have one of those moments yet where I'm like, yeah, this kid ain't going to make it in the NFL, okay? I don't feel that way. I think there's something there with him. My questions that I have of Shador are, can they coach maybe some of those bad habits he had at Colorado that he was able to get away with?
That's going to be everything for him.
Right. He was able to run himself out of trouble at Colorado. He was able to throw himself out of trouble by going across his body across the field and completing those amazing, I can't believe what I just saw type of throws. You can't do that stuff in the NFL and get away with it. So
Josh Allen made a lot of those mistakes early, and he was able to get through it because look at his body. He can throw himself out there. He can get a guaranteed first down anytime that you need, just a few yards. You can get away with it with a freak of nature like Josh Allen. You're not getting away with it with Shador because he's not an elite athlete. He's a good athlete. He's not an elite athlete.
Right. He's not his dad. And look, we saw some of the toughness last year with him on some of those runs, the hits that he was willing to take. And again, got to learn to take those hits smartly, right? You just can't be bullheaded about it, trying to run through linebackers and safeties. You also have to, protect yourself. And then we saw later in the season where he started to protect himself on those runs. And so I look at that and I say, there are a lot of positives with this kid. I just, I don't know if the Browns can eliminate the negatives that scare a lot of people around the NFL. And that's obviously the massive negative play.
Well, I'm going to get to the phones here in a second because we got guys dying to get in on this. I asked a question on Friday. It was during a lull of coming in hot, and we always promise as a diabolical question, if you guys aren't coming through and you're not performing, I've got to totally stick a very, very awkward question into it as a form of sabotage. And I love doing this. And I said, Browns fans, if I guarantee you the playoffs with Deshaun Watson as a starting quarterback this year, but it comes with an automatic contract extension, would you take it? And this is a starved playoff community. We haven't had a home playoff game, my God, since the Browns have been back in the stadium since 1999.
January of 1995 would be the last time the Browns. In fact, I think that current building is laying at the bottom of Lake Erie somewhere.
Well, the poll results are in, 2,700 votes. After I cut it off after 24 hours, 60% of you said nope, would not take the playoffs. So if anybody was questioning where people are. Now, I will say, if I asked that same question and there was...
I think there needs to be more context.
There doesn't. There doesn't need to be any more context.
That was a slippery wizard question on your part. The context needs to be about
the broader the question.
How does Deshaun look?
More
is
accurate.
he in one piece? Is he throwing for 4,000 yards that season? Is he need a little more detail to go with that?
Well, he's clearly not a bad. Deshaun Watson's not helping them make the playoffs because we had an elite defense this year. Bad quarterback play. They didn't make the playoffs. So we're even closer. One of the worst teams in football.
We did.
You disagree?
No, I'm just giving you grief over the we.
I mean, it was 60% that don't. Yeah. I'm actually surprised that number wasn't higher.
So am I. To be honest,
I thought it was going to be 75, 80%.
What's crazy, if you look at the people that actually commented, they're like, I'm taking the playoffs no matter what. But the numbers, we know how people feel about Deshaun Watson. Now, I would say if I did that same poll,
how far did they go in the playoff?
If there were 2 weeks left in the season, I did the same poll, and Deshaun Watson was playing like a top half of the league quarterback.
Right.
I think it's completely different.
Is this a Pittsburgh Steelers playoff appearance?
Is it what?
Is this a Pittsburgh Steelers playoff appearance?
What
One
do you
and
mean
done.
by that?
One and done. You make the wild card round and you're out.
I think in Cleveland you're starved for any playoff appearances.
Yeah. Now I have to put contingencies. Now I have to.
Well, that's why I don't. I agree with the way that Lima worded the question because I think this is not so much about quarterback play itself as it is on the thoughts of Deshaun Watson, still a guy who is still in uniform, but we haven't seen for 2 seasons now.
How much are you willing to compromise for a playoff appearance? That's the crux of the question, right?
I thought people were pretty desperate, but after asking the question, it's almost like the Browns are like, let's sit out a year and wait for a new quarterback. Let's get back into the draft that we can put our hands around somebody, hug somebody new and watch them develop and take almost stock in something like that as opposed to this.
I got news for Browns fans. Getting that quarterback in 2027, there may be only one path to do it. And that's just lose your way into it.
Do you have any good news, Daryl? Do you have anything flowery to say about the Browns situation?
Any good news? Yeah. Pretty much the entire defense returns this year.
All right, there's something, Daryl.
Defensive coordinator doesn't, but the defense does.
All right, when we come back in Lima Likes, hey, the Buckeyes pulled something off yesterday. Love that. Didn't love what I saw after the game. And have you ever wanted to raid a pro athlete's closet? Apparently, I missed out on an opportunity of a lifetime yesterday. Lima Likes when we return on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
By now, you guys have heard me tell my story.
Does Lima like?
Or does Lima no like?
Like?
Tell me likey. I'm liking it. I like it a lot.
No like.
He doesn't like you.
I don't like you either.
You're tacky and I hate you.
Like or no like. No like or no like.
But I definitely knew what I liked, and I definitely knew what I didn't like.
We got Zack Jackson coming up at 8:20 today.
Oh.
Yeah, if you want to, you can no-like it. That's fine. He will be joining us with all his thoughts on the Combine, the rumors. We'll see if anything's changed from before the Combine to after the Combine. But we start out with...
Lima likes.
Folks, you've got a star that can play through injury. James Harden. Yesterday, as efficient as he's been basically all year, the whole experience with the Cavs has been lower usage for James Harden, not as advertised, and even better and more efficient than we thought. Yesterday took 9 shots playing with that injury, and still, because he got to the foul line, because he hit his 3-pointers, he was able to score 22 points to help the Cavs win 106-102, bouncing back from that loss against Detroit. So how are things for James right now playing through that injury?
There's going to be some discomfort to just figure ways to fight through it. Still had too many turnovers, 5 turnovers. A couple of them just not being able to handle the ball properly, but we got no other choice.
Yeah, he decided not to go with surgery, and I told people when this injury came down, and boy, Friday we got an injury report for the Detroit game. I'm like, everybody's injured? So Keon Ellis is playing through an injury. Yep. Donovan is out, and I think that is a smart play. If anybody has an issue with that, then I think they're just idiots, because the guy's been on fumes the last few years trying to carry a team, and now he doesn't have to do that. They've got other ways to play through it. Evan Mobley, I think you've seen already. I mean, he had 3 plays, 3 rim runs against Detroit, one of which he put the ball on the deck, and he looked like unicorn Evan Mobley.
Yep.
They were always having that discussion about what kind of a player he is, but he was flashing that and looking better and better and better. Put in an unenviable situation at the end of that Detroit game. In overtime.
I would say having Evan Mobley chuck a potential tying 3, not exactly the offensive game plan I was looking for in that situation.
Yeah, wouldn't want to see that with the game on the line in the playoffs, but everything else, I think you're starting to see Evan is looking healthier and healthier. This is twice now he's come back from his injury earlier than I think people expected. But either way, right now, your Cavaliers in the 4 seed, the 4 spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs. How about
Lima likes
college hoops this weekend? I watched a ton of it. Ohio State yesterday, pulling off the upset at home. So that was
Lima likes.
But the storming of the court.
Lima no likes.
Should Ohio State be storming the court after one quad one victory?
You think you're too good for a court storming?
I don't know. Maybe it's because...
Have you watched the Ohio State basketball program in recent years?
Well, the thing is, the win doesn't get you in the tournament. Right now, I saw the predictors have them at like anywhere from 56 to 60% that they are in the tournament. But they could still play their way right back out.
I kind of feel like Ohio State basketball turned into what Indiana football used to be.
Oof. That's rough. As somebody who...
I mean, every time they make the Final Four, the banner has to come down because they did something wrong. They weren't supposed to do.
I didn't know this was going to be Cheap Shot Central when it comes to my Buckeyes. I'm feeling good about a win.
That's a segment we do at 8:20.
That's later in the show, Daryl. Not now, but congrats to them and Jake Diebler. He got the job by beating Purdue at home in February 2 years ago, and now he's hanging on for dear life with that victory. Hopefully they can use that as a starting point. But also in college hoops,
I'm a likes.
Folks, don't call them Miami of Ohio. They won again, 29-0. The victory they had on Friday night. I'm telling you, at the bar I was at, we were watching Cavs Detroit. People were up out of their seats paying attention to the end of that Miami game because people realized
nail biter.
Yeah, you get to 28-0, 29-0. This is not something you see very often in college hoops. You know, I remember way back when, was I in college? For the St. Joe's, remember, back in the day when Delonte West was on the team.
Yeah.
And Illinois at the same time was running very late into the season unbeaten. They ended up losing to Ohio State. in the regular season, right before the Big Ten tournament. I'll never forget that game. Matt Sylvester burying a big three for the young Thad Matta-led team. And then after that, his team took off. So
that before or after the Final Four banner got taken away.
Anywho, Miami was on. That was after. By the way, Miami was on their big run, and now they hit a game winner with like 4 seconds left in that game to improve to 29-0. So everybody's feeling really good, right? About the Red Hawks. They're learning how to say their names. Some people are still like, aren't they the Redskins? No, they changed their name a long time ago. If you've been paying attention, Wally Zerbiak is promoting the heck out of Miami basketball.
They might get a new basketball arena.
They got a huge allocation of funds that could be used for that. It's a good time to ask for money. And then ESPN commentator Bruce Pearl wanted to throw a wrench in all of this.
Miami, Ohio, here's the deal. Are we going to select the 68 most deserving teams, or are we going to select the 68 best teams? If we're selecting the 68 best teams, then Miami, Ohio is going to have to win their tournament to qualify as a champion. Because as an at-large, they are not one of the best teams in the country. And that's going to be a difficult choice for the committee to make.
Come on now. We cannot keep out Miami. When you get to 29-0, shouldn't that be like, all right, they're in the tournament?
They're arguing the strength.
I don't care what your schedule is.
I know they're arguing the strength of schedule thing, though. I agree with you. They should go dancing no matter what happens in the MAC tournament. Mid-American Conference should get 2
Akron fans keep telling me they're going to beat them.
Well, it's all well and good, but I think Miami should be in, and then the MAC champion.
And we're going to have
MAC
MAC tickets today at 9.
Boom!
You
Your
want to win some?
to go to the MAC
you
tournament.
can't win. I've already decided.
Okay. I'm ineligible.
All I'm saying is you get to 29-0. I know the competition is not what you'd want from some, but isn't the great thing about the NCAA tournament is that it's never been the best 64 teams, the 68. It's never been that.
I was going to say it's 68 teams. You telling me that at 29-0, Miami doesn't deserve to be one of the 68?
Now, are they most definitely going to get an 11 seed and be in Dayton? And is that a home game for them?
Well, there could be a collision course with the team that just won yesterday.
There could be a lot of home games in Dayton.
How would you feel? How would you feel about an Ohio State-Miami matchup in the tournament?
Sign me up.
You know what? Yes. Sign me up, too. That's an awesome game.
And you know what? I like Miami in that one.
Right,
sorry, I'm hating.
I didn't know I was hosting with. Thought Ken was out today. How about this? Have you ever had a chance to raid the wardrobe, raid the closet of a pro athlete?
I'm alive.
With the proceeds going to charity. Wyatt Teller did this over the weekend with his wife, Carly, who's a listener of the show.
Just in case if you were wondering if Wyatt Teller was actually serious on social media about leaving the Browns, I would say getting rid of all his Browns gear is pretty good confirmation he ain't coming back.
That's top 60 free agent to you, Wyatt Teller, Daryl Ryder, according to the Greg Rosenthal list that came out last week.
Listen, I love Wyatt Teller. I think that was one of the better trades the Browns have pulled off in recent memory. They gave up virtually nothing to get him. I'm going to miss the down the field pancakes, not going to lie.
One final note, and the golf community is absolutely celebrating today as long as they're under 50 years old.
Lima likes.
As the U.S. Open, a major, is coming back to Ohio. How about Northwest Ohio? Toledo's Inverness Club selected to host the U.S. Open.
Which, I have a funny story about this. Go ahead and reveal when this U.S. Open is going to be.
It is right around the corner when they host the 145th U.S. Open.
What U.S. Open are we on this year?
Are we on the 126th?
So what you're saying is it's going to be a while.
I will be 63 years old, I think, when the U.S. Open comes to Northwest Ohio.
I was all excited when I saw the post on X.
I'm not going to be alive for the U.S. Open. I'm not making it that long.
And yet I think you have to buy tickets this weekend before they sell out.
I see that, so I'm all excited, right? I'm like, oh, that's great. Toledo's getting the U.S. Open. Then I see when they got the U.S. Open, and I'm like, who the hell announces a major being awarded to a club for 2045? What are we doing?
That is a huge investment in a golf community that you think that a golf course is still going to be open however many years from now.
Listen, golf, post-COVID, gangbusters.
Can we get a U.S. Open at Firestone for 2050? Is that doable now?
So I said the 45th anniversary celebration of Tiger's first U.S. Open will be in Toledo. He'll be 69 years old.
Nice.
Will he be showing up?
Yeah, I think so. But will he be playing in it?
There are not going to be any other golf tours at that point, right?
Oh, the
you can promise me that?
I'm not making that promise.
You're not making that promise?
No.
That's it for Lima Likes. We've got Zack Jackson joining the show at 8:20. I know he's got college hoops thoughts, probably more than he even has from the Combine. But we're going to want to hear from him. He said Malik Willis could be plan A. Anthony Richardson could be plan B. But he was at the Combine, and he was privy to some heavy-duty conversations. We'll find out from Zack. Has his mind changed on any of that? And, hey, Kevin Stefanski closed the book on his 1 year with Shador. Is it finally water under the bridge? We'll get to that. We come back here on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
This is
Rockies 8-3. Chase DeLauder been dealing with some leg issues, pair of hits, including a 2-run homer. Meanwhile, in Scottsdale, the Guardians fall to the Diamondbacks 9-6. Listen to the Fan Rewind weeknights 11 to midnight. All the best segments from all our shows you can always listen on the Odyssey app. Headline sports news every 20 minutes right here on 92.3 The Fan. From the University Hospital Sports Desk, I'm Jeff Thomas.
Breaking Browns news. Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
Well, we do have breaking news. Just heard Jeff Thomas with the update moments ago, but obviously the Browns looking to solidify something on their offensive line. They deal with a familiar trade partner, the Houston Texans, agreeing to terms on a trade for right tackle. Is it Titus Howard to Cleveland in exchange for a 5th-round pick? 3-year, $63 million extension, also in addition to the trade. So you gave up a 5th-round pick. You're getting somebody who last year there were some mixed results, was really good in pass rush, according to some of the numbers in Pro Football Focus, and has not given up a sack, at least attributed to him, since the divisional round in 2024. Had some issues protecting or at least blocking in the run game, but the Browns trading for him. Darryl, is he 29 or is he 30 years old?
He's 29 years old, will be 30. Started 16 games each of the last 2 seasons for the Texans. 1 down, 4 to go. There is your replacement for Jack Conklin at right tackle.
So he's definitely going to play right tackle.
Well, you give him, yeah. I think that they're gonna. I would think you'd play him at right tackle because again, I am not a subscriber to Andrew Berry's theory that right tackles can be left tackles and vice versa. Like I don't think that those positions are interchangeable. I think the footwork, the techniques are different. But you got 1 down, 4 more spots on that line to fill. I really think Joel Bitonio's coming back now. I do.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. The fact that he's taken this long to think about it tells you he's really considering coming back. So if I had to bet right now, I'd say Joel's going to come back. We'll see.
Titus Howard, overall grade in 2025.
In the 60 percentile there for PFF, right?
Yeah, it said he was 58th out of 89 total tackles, overall grade. Now, his pass block grade, 17th out of 89, but run, he was one of the bottom 10 in the league. So, yeah, when you trade a 5th-rounder, and typically, I always ask anybody, come free agency, we list all the top free agency targets at each position. But what do we know about the NFL when guys even make it to free agency? They are probably older, on the downside of their career, falling out of favor with their current team. When you trade for somebody like this, what's interesting is what was the rap on the Texans last year?
They
rebooted their whole offensive line.
Yes, they did. And also, too, I think what this does for them is allow them to continue going young up front. First and foremost, and again, for the Browns, it gives them a replacement for Jack Conklin. Also, I think for the Browns, it allows them to pursue their left tackle now in the draft. I think that's... I think it's pretty safe to say the Browns are going to take a left tackle either at 6 or 24.
I've assumed at 6 overall. That was, if you missed the beginning of the show, that was one of the thoughts I had. That I did not think they were going to go wide receiver at 6. Obviously,
I don't either.
You had mentioned trading down. The only problem with trading down is that when you hear that every team is trying to trade down, and yet nobody wants to give up, significant draft capital from next season.
Because everyone wants to be in position for what is believed to be one of the better quarterback classes. Now, just caution everyone before you take that to the bank. We thought that going in to last college football season, that was going to be setting up one of the better quarterback draft classes, which I think was part of Andrew Berry's calculus in trading down from 2 to 5, taking Mason Graham, picking up the Jaguars' 2026 first-round pick, which ultimately fell at number 24 overall, thinking, okay, we're going to be in position now to get one of the top quarterbacks. Turns out really only one top quarterback in this class, and that's Fernando Mendoza. I know there's conversation about Ty Simpson being a first-round pick. A lot of buzz coming out of the combine. He's going to pop into the top 15. But the more I'm thinking about this in the landscape, and then obviously after this trade with Houston for Titus Howard, I think it really makes sense with the first pick in their arsenal that the Browns will use it for their new left tackle.
So you said one of the first dominoes to fall because obviously one of the big significant talking points about the Browns and what this rebuild or reincarnation would be
Retool.
Retool.
I mean, it is a rebuild. They don't want to use that word, but I do
one
because
half
that's what
of the
it
ball.
is.
Yeah.
They've been rebuilding for the last 2 years. You win 8 games and you're doing what you're doing. Offensively needs to be completely good. Like that's a rebuild. That's not a retool. There's nothing to retool offensively because there's nothing there. You have to build from the ground up. So this is obviously the first domino to fall this offseason, and especially up front when, depending on what Joel decides to do, you potentially have to replace all 5 of your starting offensive linemen, okay? At least have to replace 4 of them. So now you get Howard here in the fold, Andrew Berry getting business done before he leaves Indianapolis to come back to Cleveland, and they begin their internal evaluations of the existing roster with the new coaching staff.
Does it signify anything to you at all? And again, if you're just joining us, the Browns have made a trade again with the Texans. How do you feel about trading with the Texans?
Well, the last big trade they made with the Texans worked out great, as I roll my eyes.
They have not been shy, obviously, in working with each other, but they have brought in right tackle, at least that's what he's listed at, Titus Howard, somebody who much better, according to the numbers, and what happened last year in Houston, much better in pass protection than the run. So when you bring in somebody who's 29, on the verge of 30 for the season when they get underway, does it signify anything to you about the plans of the team? Because obviously they're inking him to an extension.
Right.
And I've already seen some people say, well, if they're
He'll
doing...
be, I think, 32 going on 33 when that extension would expire. So there's nothing wrong with the age factor there. You're good there. It's not like the guy's 35 or 36 years old. So I still feel like you're in the sweet spot there of peak performance of a guy's career when you're talking about years 29 through 32, 33 with this contract extension. So there's no issue there. That's fine.
Yeah, just in looking like every offensive lineman, I mean, so many of those guys at some point are dealing with, nagging injuries, concussion last year. He missed a game because of that. Right. He had knee injuries at the end of the year, but who isn't dealing with knee and ankle injuries on the offensive line?
His rookie season, he played 8 games. A couple years ago, 2023, I think he played 6 or 7 games. But the last 2 seasons, 16. He's had a year where he played 14 and 15, and then a full season, I want to say, in 21 or 22. So he's only had 2 years in his career where he's missed significant time. Otherwise, he's been a very reliable player.
All right, early returns. Browns addressing offensive line. Let's take the temperature of the Browns fans. Meanwhile, we have Zack Jackson, who, as we speak, already texting me, compiling the numbers. We'll find out what Zack Jackson thinks about all this coming up in just about 10 minutes from now. Let's go to the phones for Vincent in Virginia. Next up on the fan. How do you feel? How do you feel whoever ends up starting for the Browns at quarterback? They've got some help on that offensive line now.
Whoever they bring in, until they build an offensive line, they're not going to be effective. I'm so sick and tired of this organization. We've had more quarterbacks than we've had presidents. We've had 4 quarterbacks that worth talking about since 1980. Brian Sight, Bernie Kosar, at least Jameis Winston was exciting. He's turnover machine, but he was least exciting. And Baker. Outside of that, you don't have anything to talk about when it comes to quarterbacks for the Browns. And my whole thing is until you change this clown organization and get competent people to get competent players, why is Malik Willis going to come to a team with no offensive line and no receivers? Don't even make sense. But that's the kind of stupid stuff they do.
All right, Vincent.
I wish they would just trade Shador And so you can go out here and get Simpson.
Trade.
And put him in the same
Trade Shador.
Trading. Please trading. Because they're not – quarterbacks come to Cleveland to be ruined. And that's why we've had almost 50.
All right, thank you for the call. Vincent, Daryl,
what an uplifting call.
Somebody's got to play quarterback. Can't just trade them all. Somebody's got to play quarterback this year for the Cleveland Browns. All right, when we come back, we will get the latest on Browns' maneuver that has them at least the beginning of the retooling of the offensive line. One down. Could it be 2 more to go, 3 more to go, 4 more to go? We'll ask Zack Jackson that. He just got back from the Combine. He has a lot of thoughts. Can't wait for his perspective. Plus, your chance to win Mid-American Conference Men's Basketball Championship tickets. March 14th at Rocket Arena. Your chance coming up less than an hour from now here on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
22 got the start. One scoreless inning. Angel Martinez, solo home run, and Nolan Jones, an RBI single in the loss. Get all the latest Browns content filtered right to your phone during this offseason by following the Browns playlist and 92.3 The Fan on the Odyssey app. Headline sports news every 20 minutes right here on 92.3 The Fan. From the University Hospital Sports Desk, I'm Jeff Thomas.
All right, Combine coming to an end, and already the Browns maneuvering to start the overhaul of the offensive line and the offense in general. What does it mean for the draft? What does it mean for the free agency period that's coming up? Nobody better to have on right now joining us on the Make It Right Call Kyle Wright hotline. Zack Jackson, fresh off his appearance in Indy. Zach, it was obviously a very busy time for you. Any surprise that the Browns already getting to work on that offensive line?
No, because they got a lot of fixing and replacing to do. So I'm interested to see if Howard is going to be the right guard or the right tackle. You know, he's played both. He's certainly in the plans, and it's the kind of trade that always made sense. So, you know, he's 30. They pushed his money forward, which is what they do. But to me, it's not just on the line; it's kind of everywhere over the next, week and a half, and really even beyond that. Is there going to be a concerted effort to get starters at specific positions and say, "Hey, we're here and we want to be really good here," or is this just a guy they had to get because he is experienced, because he can play multiple spots? And is it going to be a more patient, more open rebuild? We don't know that answer, and this one doesn't necessarily answer that for us. Right, but it's the kind of move they had to make, and they didn't wait. So I don't know if they've ever made a trade with Houston before and how those have worked out, but this guy's been a good player.
All right, $20 million a year plus, and a fifth rounder, the one that they got in the Kenny Pickett trade. So what does that tell you about the commitment?
It's kind of it's a commitment, but it's not a huge one. That's the first pick of the fifth round, but they have two others. I think they were always going to use at least one of those on a veteran player. They chose offensive line. They chose it right now. So, we don't know what's going to happen with Joel, but it was obvious the right side of the line was not coming back. The center is not coming back, at least not until midseason at earliest. And we don't know what's going to happen at either tackle spot. So you have a guy that can play two spots and a guy who's played. This is a really good use, for March of a fifth-round pick. And then you still have more if you need to address wide receiver, and we don't know what's going to happen at the most important spot. But for this Browns team, you could easily make the argument that offensive lineman is the most important spot and one they were always going to be investing in. Trade, free agency, second wave of free agency, waiver wire down the road. This group is probably going to be a work in progress throughout the whole summer.
How much do you think this trade changes the Browns' plans at 6 or 24, Zach?
Probably not at all, Daryl. It could sway them, to trade down. It could, but if you like a player enough to take him at number 6 and he's 21 years old, then and he's a right tackle, you're going to take that player. And DeJuan Jones isn't going to change that. And Titus Howard, even if he prefers to play tackle over guard, isn't going to change that. So we'll see. It's a gradual process. But, I think their preference will be to try to trade down or to take a left tackle. So in that regard, those are both open and not really changed by this morning's move.
All right, so obviously offensive line was going to be a grouping that they were going to have to address, and that's going to be something that would bring a smile to the face of whoever's going to be under center next year for the Browns. Did you come any closer after your week in Indy to figuring out how they might attack it?
Yeah, I feel like the next trade has to be for Anthony Richardson. I feel pretty strongly about that. That makes perfect sense with the open competition thing. He signed for 1 year. He's got upside. He could compete with Shador Sanders for the starting job. And the hope would be, obviously, that one of them hits. And if it doesn't, you're still on track for next year. So when I do my free agent and trade target list, and, got to amend it, even though I'm not done with it yet, because of this morning's trade, I think he's going to be the number one target. So maybe he will want to go somewhere else. I don't really buy into the thought of him going and sitting somewhere because he's only signed for 1 year. So it makes just a lot of sense for the Browns to go that route. It's cheap. It would probably be one of the other 2 fifth-round picks to acquire it, and he would get in and have a chance to resurrect his career and compete for the starting job and try to put things together. You know, he started 15 games. Last year was lost, but he was always drafted too young and drafted too early. And like I said, it would be the low-cost thing that would allow the Browns to continue to upgrade other areas to support whoever is going to be that QB or the multiple players who are going to take snaps in 2026 for the Browns.
Last week, Zach, I think you said Malik Willis you felt was like the Browns' plan A. So are you under the impression now?
No, I did not say that. I did not say that he was plan A. I said that the Browns will have a chance to be very involved with Malik Willis, and they will. They're on a very short list. So I never thought they would get him, but I very certainly did not say he was plan A. I understand why they would go for it, and I think that they have to. I think when you look at the teams that are interested, they could have a seat at the table. So, and they can certainly afford him if they want. Now, it's a big commitment down the road. It'd be a big gamble on a guy that has only made 6 career starts, and you'd have to get it right. But in that realm, you can't think that you're going to get it wrong. And you've had a 26-year search for a starting quarterback, and there's your starting quarterback. So that represents, a pivot from the thought of open competition, right? But and would it be bold? Sure. But I think it's the strange circumstance that's led him to being here, hitting the market. And, I think Miami is the clear favorite, but their cap situation is worse than the situation here. We don't know what's happening in Pittsburgh. We don't know what's happening in Minnesota, but they have J.J. McCarthy and don't have a GM. They might not be in to make a bold move. So I think if the Browns want a seat at a small table with Malik Willis, they would get it. And he's clearly the number 1 free agent and number 1 quarterback target for a reason.
Zack Jackson with us on the Make It Right, Call Kyle Wright hotline. The wide receivers, many of them creating some headlines in an otherwise pedestrian combine week. From the interviews to the 40 times, what stood out to you? And could you see Carnell Tate wearing a Browns uniform when all is said and done?
The transfer portal's making these guys faster, huh? These times out of Indy. I think Carnell Tate is certainly someone they have to explore there. And it was weird that his agents apparently felt the need to clarify his 40 time. I don't think that was ever really going to cost him his shot to be the number 1 wide receiver, right? He's got great size. He had great production. He's a super talented kid. So, I've thought, Anthony, just my gut, that they would go line over receiver to start. And I think it's probably more likely that they even go 2 linemen. But I don't know. I think they'll look at Carnell Tate, and I think that he will go in the top 10 of this draft for sure. So I think there are more questions about the next guys. I think Carnell Tate is the wide receiver 1 in this draft. But a lot of times it comes down to personal preference for these teams and where they think they need to go. So pretty clear that Mendoza's going to go 1 and Arvell Reese is going to go 2, right? Or the Texas Tech edge rusher. So in those other spots before the Browns come on the clock, who's going to go? Is it going to be offensive tackle? Is it going to be receiver? Is it going to be edge rusher? And then what opportunity to trade down does that present the Browns if teams want to come up for an edge rusher, for a wide receiver, or for Caleb Downs? I think we're still weeks away from finding that out, but teams left the combine yesterday kind of starting to put pieces together on that. And obviously trades got talked there, as they always do. And so now everybody goes back and regroups and focuses on free agency and the veteran trade market for a little while. But I think we're 3 weeks from Ohio State's pro day, and we're 2 weeks from teams really refocusing in, not just on the draft, but on, okay, who are we really targeting here? And I still think Carnell Tate definitely goes 10, and he might go before the Browns pick.
Did anything happen or did you hear anything in Indy, Zach, that changed your view of how you feel like the Browns are going to attack the first round of the draft?
No, not really. They're piecing it together, right? And there's some interesting young tackles. I mean, what do we know about the Browns draft plans for sure? They always go young. They always go athletic. And those guys those top 3 tackles, if you include Freeling, are young, and they're all athletic. So it will come down to priority and availability and where they think they fit. And like I said, I think if you draft a tackle that high, you're not necessarily worried about his day one fit or even his day one production. So that's what we're watching here on these next offensive line moves. It's not about the starting five for September as much as it is about the future. And to me, it's fair to say the most interesting quote of the week was Andrew Berry citing the Bears' offensive line rebuild last year, which included a trade for 2 guards, signing of a center, and drafting a tackle in the second round. Well, now they've traded for 1 guard or tackle. They're going to have the ability to sign a guy and then probably do the rest via the draft. But maybe they will skew more towards experience. I think this trade probably takes them out of trading for Walker Little or another experienced tackle. But, I would say over this week, guys, across the league, there's 100 players who probably aren't going to be back with their current teams on their current contracts. But whether they end up taking pay cuts or whether they end up getting traded or whether they end up getting cut because it doesn't work out is a lot dependent on what happens and who else gets signed and who's available. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts. And so I think it's fair to say this isn't the only Browns trade, but they wanted to prioritize this. And it would not be any surprise if it's somewhere along the way, they continue to add veteran offensive linemen. I mean, one of the best free agent signings this group has made in 6 years is Ethan Pochik, and that was made like March 28th. So it wasn't necessarily at the beginning. So they got a lot of time to piece this together.
Zach, Ohio State players that were figuring in big time, the athletic freaks, some of the measurements that we saw, whether it was Sonny Styles, and then the talk about, obviously, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, you mentioned Tate already. Who made the biggest leap? Obviously, the fans were loving what they saw out of Sonny Styles. Did the teams like it just as much?
First of all, I want to say this trade disappointed me in regard to I wanted to come on here and just talk Chris Holtman with you when we started, but instead we started talking Titus Howard. Yeah, I think the buzz guy was Styles. I mean, 6'5" and 244, 44-inch vertical jump. It's like, not that anybody was shocked, but when you see those in front of you, it's like jaw-dropping. And these guys are all freaks. So it's a machine they've built there. And like I said, it's not stunning. So if Reese, uses that and uses the rest of the process to lock up the number 2 pick and Sonny Styles goes top 10. And I was talking to someone who was like, hey, this team's got, like 4 of the top 12 and maybe more depending on what teams end up doing. So they are crazy freaky. And then Styles' brother ran like under 4.3, right? It's insane. I remember watching Sonny Styles play high school basketball one time and just thinking this is not a human being. And so fast forward 3 years and we leave Indy saying this is not really a normal human being.
Like you, Zach, Drew Aller had a Charlie Fry jersey hanging out in the dog pound. What do you make of him? He obviously gave everyone the warm and fuzzies around here with what he said about the Browns growing up in Northeast Ohio and all those type of things. But just what do you think his prospects look like right now?
Well, he's certainly going to get drafted, and some people think it could be as early as the 3rd round. So I think that just depends on how these next few weeks go. What really were his medicals and everybody else's medicals and interviews. And then what is the market? I don't know who other than Malik Willis, Kirk Cousins, and potentially Mac Jones is really going to be prioritized, Daryl, over these next few weeks. So then, how do teams view the other quarterbacks and their own quarterback situations? I don't think anyone looks at Drew Aller and says 2026. But I think if you look at Drew Aller and say, okay, he just didn't perform in some big moments. He had bad injury luck. Maybe the team around him wasn't as great as they thought. Like, if you end up liking him through this process and you take him in the 4th round and point down the road, like I think that's where he lands. I think he probably is a 4th round pick. And, as far as the Browns' interest or the Steelers' interest, it really depends on what they do next week. And then if they don't do anything significant next week, how those teams view Simpson and Nussmeier. Simpson could go top 15. He could go top 35. Nussmeier could go 28th. He could go 60th. I don't think anybody knows right now. And, last week was just kind of the start of teams really narrowing in on that once they all got to meet with them and check the medicals and everything else. I mean, if Nussmeier's healthy last year, Dane Brugler said and has maintained that he had Nussmeier ahead of Jackson Dart last year. Nussmeier came back to school. It was a nightmare Some of it was him playing well. A lot of it was not his fault. So how do teams view him now? And then with the Browns specifically, do they really want this athletic mobile quarterback? Do they have to have that guy? I think, that kind of determines the next step. If they end up in the draft pool, I think they're not going to end up in the draft pool, but they might, because I think they leave there not knowing exactly. I think at other positions, which is quite obvious with this morning's trade, they left there with some clear priorities and knowing what they were going to do in the first wave. But at quarterback, I still think that a lot of it is probably TBD.
All right, Zach, we got to go, and we have a lot to react to, and we appreciate it. But all I know is this. Ohio State has a quad 1 win, and John Carroll just won their conference tournament. That's all I paid attention to over the weekend. You can have your football and combine stuff.
I'll be watching the D3 bracket show at 1 o'clock, and so will you.
He's not wrong. All right, thank you, Zach. Appreciate it. There he is, Zack Jackson. Do we misquote him? There's a debate going on internally over whether
I feel bad if I heard him wrong. I didn't mean to put him on the spot.
What do you mean? Because I've got a clip right here on Malik Willis.
Okay.
And Zack Jackson last week.
Well, Zach's already off the phones. Hold on. He's not here to defend himself. Do you want to play it? Go ahead and play it.
He's the number 1 free agent. He has taken a huge leap over 2 years. He was always a developmental player at a position of great importance and a position that, you try to develop guys. He's only 2 years older than the guys you'd be looking at in the draft. And you always pointed to this year where you landed on 6-24 and there's no sure thing. You hired a head coach who publicly values a mobile quarterback and was on the other sideline when Malik Willis played the best game of his very short NFL career last year. And I just don't see there's any other way that he would be anything other than plan A. Can you get him? They have to try to find that out. But the way I look at it is they're one of 3 or 4 realistic teams. So you at least have a seat at the table. And in 10 or so days, we're going to know if they can get him or not.
We're going to need a jury because there's a little wiggle room there. There's a defense that Zach could have.
Yeah, he did not definitively say he was plan A. It just would make sense that he would be plan A.
While all that
so I apologize to Zach. That's on me. My bad.
Didn't mean to rob that bank. I showed up with the gun and the note, and
it just happened. All right. With all that said, we've got a trade. The Browns trading a 5th-round pick and committing $63 million. We'll look at what the guarantees end up being for a new offensive lineman, someone that could potentially play right guard or right tackle with their trade with the Houston Texans today. More reaction from that and what Zach said, and this, I think, is an eyebrow raiser. What he said is the very next move for the Cleveland Browns. 216-474-0092. That's straight ahead on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
This winter. The Fan, powered by Scheiben Jewelers, Cleveland's premier jewelry store. Listen to 92.3 The Fan on the Odyssey, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn app.
I'm interested to see if Howard is going to be the right guard or the right tackle. He's played both. He's certainly in the plans, and it's the kind of trade that always made sense because he is experienced, because he can play multiple spots. It's the kind of move they had to make, and they didn't wait.
That was Zack Jackson moments ago on the brand new right tackle / perhaps right guard for the Browns, Titus Howard, as they dealt 5th-round pick, $63 million. We don't have the guarantees or any of that stuff on the deal, but
good money if you can get it.
Yeah, we were here live, local, late breaking when that came across. And then we talked about that with Zack Jackson as they start the retooling of that offensive line. Still don't have any news on Joel Bitonio, although that's expected in the next week, especially with free agency looming.
We should this time next week, hopefully we'll know what Joel Bitonio does because the legal tampering period will begin, I believe, a week from today at noon. So, and the Browns need to know, so they
shape their plans. Yeah,
it will obviously affect what they need to do at the outside of free agency here.
Meanwhile, 15 minutes, your chance to win a pair of tickets to the 2026 Mid-American Conference Tournament Men's Championship game on Saturday, March 14th at Rocket Arena. Your chance to win that. What else did Zack Jackson say about what's next for the Cleveland Browns?
I mean, I feel like the next trade has to be for Anthony Richardson. I feel pretty strongly about that. That makes perfect sense with the open competition thing. He signed for 1 year. He's got upside. He could compete with Shador Sanders for the starting job. And the hope would be, obviously, that one of them hits. And if it doesn't, you're still on track for next year. So when I do my free agent and trade target list and, got to amend it, even though I'm not done with it yet, because of this morning's trade, I think he's going to be the number one target. Maybe he will want to go somewhere else. I don't really buy into the thought of him going and sitting somewhere because he's only signed for 1 year. So it makes just a lot of sense for the Browns to go that route, and he would get in and have a chance to resurrect his career and compete for the starting job.
So that was Zack Jackson. That means Malik Willis out, Anthony Richardson in. Your first reaction, Daryl Ryder, who's in studio today for Ken Carman?
Can't wait. I really can't wait for Shador Sanders v. Anthony Richardson if ultimately that's how it plays out. Look, it felt like that going into the combine, there was at least some Browns Malik Willis buzz there. And now it feels like coming out of the combine, everyone's like, all right, let's get real for a moment. Like, let's have a moment of clarity, a moment in reality. While, yes, the Browns should and will likely pursue Malik Willis in free agency, the odds of them actually getting something done probably not as good as, some of these other teams like Miami. Zach brought up Minnesota and their situation, Arizona and their deal out there in the desert, Pittsburgh as well. And I'm not an Anthony Richardson fan. I don't like what happened in Indianapolis. I have tremendous reservations about it, but I think what Zach said made a lot of sense, right? He's in the final year of his contract. You do not pick up that option on May 1st for the 5th year. You have him play out the rookie contract, and you see if something's there. And if it's there, you win big, and if it's not there, well, you wasted another year. And when you're talking about the Browns, what's another year wasting time at quarterback?
Well, I think Anthony Richardson, that's huge news. I said a little bit of this on Friday when we were together, that if it's Malik Willis, that's curtains for Shador Sanders in Cleveland, at least at the start of the year. That's not good for him at all. Anthony Richardson, that should be a delight.
Door is still open for Shador.
That's
at that
huge.
Point. Yeah.
That's huge because I can't definitively tell you that
Richardson's going to beat him out.
No. I mean, honestly, now this is where, hey, this is a huge benefit of having the offseason and to put any of that to bed immediately. I know still there'll be some Shador fans who will be like, well, why should he even have to compete? Richardson has been terrible as a starter in the NFL. Funny thing is, Richardson's won games. I mean, 2 years ago, he was 6-5 as a starter. So if you're just using wins and losses, which I've heard some Shador people say.
Well, hey, he went 3-4 last year.
Right. With a very bad Browns offense, but an elite defense.
especially in those games.
He won 3 times as many games as the other 2 quarterbacks on the roster.
That's true. So I look at that as
I can say positive things about the Browns.
Finally, and here I'm saying something positive about the prospects of Shador getting a chance to do that, because he would have had, Anthony Richardson. Now, Richardson's got a better arm and a better athlete.
Yeah.
But he has not been able to play the position.
The tools are there, okay? Like Zach said, I get it. I understand it. Doesn't mean I have to like it. You're clearly taking a flyer.
Shador's got a better feel.
All right, let me ask you this. What are you willing to give up for Anthony Richardson? What are you giving up to get?
Didn't Zach say just one of the other fifths? You had 3 of them. You just got rid of that first pick overall in the 5th round,
right,
which you had acquired in the Kenny Pickett trade.
Right.
And I have to look at the other 2, but if that's all it is, it's another dart. Much like they threw a dart picking up Kenny Pickett last year. That's all that would be, right?
Yeah, I just feel like they're standing blindfolded in front of the dartboard, just throwing anything, hoping they can hit as close as possible to the bullseye. I mean, that's just where you're at right now. And also, too, it would not be just Shador v. Anthony Richardson. I mean, Deshaun Watson's in this thing, whether we like it or not, as well. I mean, they're going to take a look and see if there's anything left in the tank with Deshaun. So, yay, we get another 3-man quarterback competition if this all materializes. Get your PSLs for Brook Park now.
Yeah, well, I always felt that was probably going to be the case anyway. There was going to be some semblance of a competition, again, unless they brought in Malik Willis.
You know what? I'm just so over Browns quarterback competitions. I've seen so many of them. None of them have paid off. That's why I'm so unenthused about it, because I'm just sick of quarterback competitions. They never result in anything positive for the Browns. Okay.
Ooh, I'm trying to think.
And Derek Anderson, who made the Pro Bowl, threw for over 3,000 yards. Braylon Edwards was the 1,000-yard receiver. Kellen Winslow Jr., 1,000-yard receiving tight end that year. The offense was just gangbusters, and he eventually ended up in a quarterback competition. Like, what Browns quarterback competition has ever borne fruit for this franchise? None.
Well, that was it. Technically a competition that first time with Hoyer
and Johnny.
Hoyer and Johnny. No, I don't think that. I mean,
not a real one.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, Johnny didn't. Well,
I
don't want to get into the Johnny issues.
For the quarterback competition?
Hold on. I thought we were micromanaging every pass thrown in training camp that year.
Well, we micromanage every pass that's thrown in training camp. That's what we do.
But did we track it and publish the findings?
Not officially.
Yeah,
no, not at that point.
Then it doesn't count.
That was pre-internet. The internet didn't exist back then, way back when.
Way back in 2014.
Owen, at the start of the show,
Jimmy hired the homeless guy to come in and track it in camp.
He's unhoused, Daryl.
Not commenting on that. Owen, you said you bristled at the notion earlier in the show of Kyler Murray.
Right, and now they've made a trade, and guess what? Still bristling.
Okay, but do you like what Zach said about Anthony Richardson?
No, not really.
I mean, nobody's seen anything really good.
The only upside from him
Richardson
is that he's young. He's young, and maybe there's a way to turn it around. Kyler Murray
he's
got
younger
money
than Shador
and decided money's cool, Fortnite's cooler, and I'm not about that.
Now, obviously, Richardson, the one thing, if you Google his name, the one thing that's going to come up more than anything that the internet debated and pounced
Same thing
on
that I say too,
was that he took himself out of a football game.
Out of a game for Joe Flacco. They went to Joe Flacco, who was washed up and then was good again.
You know what? At least Jed Wills never took himself out of a game.
His play took himself out of the football game. The penalties
thank you, Lima. That was the joke.
216-474-0092. When we come back, you've heard Zack Jackson. You've heard Darryl Ryder, and the Browns have made a trade. Are you guys ready? Forget a pencil. Are you ready to Sharpie a pick in at number 6 for your Cleveland Browns? Are you closer to doing so than maybe you were before the weekend started? That's straight ahead here on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan. University Hospital Sports Desk, I'm Jeff Thomas.
Spring training is underway. Get the biggest news from Florida and Arizona here. Cleveland's Sports Radio, 92.3 The Fan.
The moment you've been waiting for, basketball fans of Northeast Ohio. Always a great event every year, Mid-American Conference Tournament. And now your chance to win championship tickets on the men's side. Saturday, March 14th, Rocket Arena. End of the word bid, B-I-D, by the end of the hour. At 923thefan.com to get registered to win. Get tickets at rocketarena.com. All from Sports Radio 923 The Fan this year with the MAC tournament. An undefeated Miami. A lot of eyes going to be on Cleveland, Ohio, come basketball tournament time. Meanwhile, Daryl Ryder in for Ken Carman, brought to you by Scheiben Jewelers, Cleveland's premier jewelry store. If you're just joining us now, the Browns taking that first step in reformatting the offensive line and bringing in Texans right tackle Titus Howard, 3-year, $63 million contract extension. You traded the first pick of the 5th round for his services and then immediately inking him to an extension. So we've been talking a lot about that as the plan is in motion, Daryl.
John McClain, who's covered the Houston Texans and football in Houston for nearly 5 decades, he posted this: after everything Browns GM Andrew Berry has done to help rebuild the Texans, Nick Caserio has done him a solid with Titus Howard for only a 5th-round pick. And that seems to be the consensus out of Houston. They're not happy about this trade.
Well, they've obviously got to figure out anytime a team is in the playoffs, and as frequently as the Texans have been in the playoffs, it's pretty staggering how often they go to the playoffs. A lot of it has to do with their division,
right,
as well. But
they actually win their division on occasion, unlike the Browns.
They have, and they've obviously they haven't really had playoff success. They do have 4 playoff wins. In recent memory.
Still more than the Browns?
Well, I think that's everybody virtually at this point, Daryl. But they had to overhaul their offensive line. They tried to do it at the start of last year. They have money committed to a lot of veterans.
Yep.
And they had to say goodbye because very rarely do you even get the opportunity to get even average offensive linemen. Teams don't really tend to give them up. Now, his age kind of working against him a little bit because he's going to play next season for the Browns at age 30. Which offensive lineman you start to get into.
Right.
But, beggars couldn't be choosers. Browns had to do something, and they had to take some stabs here.
It just feels
you can't
like
draft 5 rookie.
It just feels like they got good value here.
Right.
I know it's the first pick in the 5th round, but I really do feel like the Browns got good value here. And, you give them the contract extension. Zack Jackson mentioned with us at 8:20. It remains to be seen if he'll be at guard or tackle. I'm leaning towards probably put him at tackle, considering the money you just put out there. But he has the ability to play both of those spots and play well. But yeah, I mean, Andrew Berry had talked at the combine. Looking at the Bears model, okay? They traded for guys, they signed guys, they drafted guys. Well, already got our first trade, right? Now, just for folks to understand, this is in the weeds here, but this isn't going to be official or announced by the team until the new league year. This trade can't be completed until then, but the agreement in place, and so 1 of 5 down. They got 4 more to go. We'll see what Joel Bitonio decides here over the next week before the legal tampering period actually begins a week from today. Think about it. Week from today, legal tampering for free agency begins. Oh, by the way, half the deals were already done in Indianapolis last week. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, which is typically how it works. Meanwhile, how about this from Field Yates? So we are wondering what the dominoes are going to be, especially with everybody post-combine starting to truly think about what could they do at number 6 overall. There's been so much chatter about them trading down. Field Yates says draft impact from the trade. The Browns own pick number 6. Miami right tackle Francis Maunoa, an obvious potential target. He played 0 college snaps at left tackle. If he's still on the Browns' radar at 6, it would signal confidence. They believe he can play left tackle or is a guard. What does it mean for you, Daryl, and that number 6 overall pick?
Yeah, I mean, I think Monroe Freeling is another guy to keep an eye on here. The Georgia tackle, and remember where the Browns' new head coached in college, Georgia Bulldogs. So have no shortage of intel coming out of there on him as well. Look, I think that what this trade does do, Anthony, is tell you that it's going to be a left tackle in the first round. Okay, they got 2 picks. One of the 2 picks going to be a left tackle. The other selection probably going to be a wide receiver. Like I'm pretty firm in that conviction, regardless of whatever debates are out there about Ty Simpson and Ohio State safeties and all that. I feel like, and that's why I asked Zach when we had him on, like, has your opinion changed about what the Browns' plans were going to be? And then he's like, yeah, no, not really. So I feel like offensive line, wide receiver, more specifically on the offensive line, left tackle and wide receiver are going to be those 2 positions the Browns will be looking to attack with either number 6 or a little lower with the trade down and the 24th overall selection.
Well, let me hear from Browns fans on whether or not they are starting to get to the point where they know what they want to do at 6. Because I always give everybody kind of a pass until after the combine, because I didn't want to get bit like we got bit last year. We were talking about Shador Sanders, number 2 overall in the draft, behind Cam Ward. That was the talk, seriously, not just here. That was the talk in a lot of places before the combine. After the combine, when basically anybody who was plugged in was like, 2nd overall, may not go in the first 2 days of the draft. It totally changed.
Right.
It was crazy.
Well, here's why it changes. Because the combine is where everybody finds out once the true serum is flowing at 1 a.m. at prime, then everyone finds out what is really thought about a lot of these either top prospects or highly touted prospects, and that's why the narrative changed. So anytime you're hearing, oh, this guy's flying up draft boards, no, he isn't flying up any draft board. It just means that you're finding out what teams really think and feel. They go to the combine with an idea of what their draft boards look like already. It's all about confirming information they already know, or maybe coloring in some of the lines that are still blurry for them. But from an NFL front office standpoint, if the combine is completely turning your draft board on its head, you're doing it all wrong. Okay? Blow your organization up, fire some people, your scouting department's not doing it right, your GM's not doing it right. The combine should not be drastically altering draft boards organizationally. From a media standpoint, yeah, it should, because that's where the information kind of comes out about how these teams feel about a lot of these prospects.
Looks like from just a few minutes ago, we're hearing from the brand new Cleveland Browns offensive lineman Titus Howard, who apparently said, I wasn't surprised. They're trying to get younger. He's talking about the Texans here and pay some guys. I ain't mad. I kind of knew it was going to happen, signing a 3-year, $63 million deal with $45 million in new money. So that's another added dimension to the contract. They're saying $45 million is basically in addition to what was already on the books. So Titus Howard, a Cleveland Brown, that all coming from Aaron Wilson there on social media. So I also thought, the debate, I don't know if it was all that much of a, quote, controversy surrounding the 40 time of Buckeye standout wide receiver Carnell Tate. So let me set the scene of what went down. And this, I don't know if you think this rose to the level of controversy, but did you see he ran the 4.52 and came in even a little shorter than was as advertised at the combine? What did he measure in at 6'2"? And I was hearing 6'4", Carnell Tate. No, he came in at 6'2". His hands were massive, which is just one of those indicators.
You know what I care about?
What's that?
Can catch football.
Okay.
That's what I care about.
Well, that was the thing. Like Harold
catch the ball.
Harold Fannin, his tape, you couldn't find a drop. And then last year in camp and during especially the first half of the season, he had accumulated some drops. And so that surprised some people. So it's hard to know what's gonna always translate when you get to the next level. Obviously, big hands, that comes to the forefront, catching a football. But it's also being able to
Get open.
be able to get open and to shed some guys at the line of scrimmage because he's going to have a size advantage.
We can play the pause game until we're blue in the face, and I know a lot of us did that last season, right, with these receivers and talking about windows, whether it was for Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders at quarterback, and these guys hitting or missing the windows, and you're like, oh, well, this guy's open, and that guy's open, and that guy's open, and every time you're going to – but are they really, really open? You know what I'm saying? So – can you get open? Can you catch the football? That's kind of what I care about. The measurables conversation, the 40-yard dash time conversation is all well and good, but for me, it always goes back to the tape. And for front offices, it always goes back to the tape. Now, any executive that saw those 40 times in his testing times, Anthony, they're going to go back and check the tape again.
Well, so this is what's so funny to me. The controversy is that he was expected to run, low 4.4, maybe even better.
There were a lot of receivers that did run in the low 4.4s.
It's crazy.
And I made the comment on X over the weekend because we know how much Andrew Berry loves him some speedy wide receivers, right? But the problem is they usually can't catch the ball. Like, it's great. Okay, it's great. You're fast. Fantastic. But you can't catch the ball. So that really doesn't do me any good.
Well, so Tate ran a 4.52, and then after people started to notice that was a little slower than some thought they would get out of Tate, because for a guy that could go number 6 overall,
right?
Typically, you got to be a freak in every regard. I think Jamar Chase ran in the 4.3s and had all that size and obviously the big playability in college on a championship team. Typically, that's what you're looking for. You got to be a master of all of those traits. And Adam Schefter had to take to social media to clarify what some other NFL executives thought that he truly was at, correcting the 40 time. And I laugh about all this because in the year 2026, we have a little bit better technology. I know Andrew Berry has been on this show in the past talking about the GPS technology.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really need to measure them at the combine.
The invisible laser lines or whatever that they use for it. So your fastest wide receiver in the 40 was Brennan Thompson, a 4.26. Xavier Thomas from LSU, a 4.28. And Deion Burks from Oklahoma, 4.3. Those were your top 3 40-yard dash finishers at the combine. Well, by the way, how many of those 3 guys, any of them first-round picks?
Oh, those guys.
Yeah.
No.
That's my...
Yeah. And there's a lot of busts if you just go by the fastest guys of the combine.
Yeah.
That's where they lead the way by far at the biggest bust, which is always funny when we're sitting here examining the combine and going nuts. Meanwhile, the guy who stole the show at the combine was that Arkansas quarterback, which they're already asking if he needs to change positions. Because
another Lamar Jackson situation?
But unlike Lamar, this guy was not productive at quarterback in college, and that's Taylon Green. He broke records for the quarterbacks. He ran, he's 6'5", 6'6", so he came in at 6'6".
So good. He's fast at running away from defensive linemen.
Well, it brought up guys like Terrell Pryor. Like, obviously, Terrell Pryor was going to try to play quarterback because he was productive at a major football program. But you wonder if he would have been open to switching positions earlier in his career. What could Terrell Pryor have been had he come into the league as a slash and a wide receiver?
I know.
Could he have made a boatload more money? So it's so funny when people get a hold of these conversations, they typecast these controversies and whether, the fossil GMs are putting stereotypes on these guys when you wonder, is Taylon Green better off coming into the league as an athlete instead of a quarterback? Could it actually make him more money? And what's his agent really telling him behind the scenes? Always is interesting to me. All right, 216-474-0092. Seriously, I want to hear from the fans on how you're feeling. Browns have already made a move on the offensive line. Has that changed your thinking about number 6 overall? Did Carnell Tate's 40 time change your thinking at all? And is it water under the bridge when it comes to Kevin Stefanski and Shador Sanders? We have some audio. Are they being the bigger men after all was said and done after the rocky year with the two of them? That's all coming up straight ahead here on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
Coach Todd Monk and the receiver coach. We just talked about, they got up there, we talked about put my film on, see what all I can remember, who all position I know, what coverages I do, and then we looked at a couple plays, what I could do better at, why was it a lack of execution on this play. It'll mean a lot to stay in Ohio. Like, Columbus is Ohio, it's an hour up the street, so yeah, it'll mean a lot to stay in Columbus, next to Columbus, and then I can go out there and see all my guys out there at Ohio State. And I know Ohio State fans love Cleveland Browns, so why not?
Carnell Tate. Could he be the next Cleveland Brown? Is number 6 too high to take him? Is he even going to be there at 6? I think he will.
Well, after that 40 time, his draft stock is plummeting.
I know. It's weird. I got in trouble with some of the Ohio State people down in Columbus like a month and a half ago just saying, hey, Carnell Tate was amazing this year, but he didn't have the job that Jeremiah Smith had. Jeremiah Smith was defended by the best, week in and week out. The game plans revolved around Jeremiah Smith. That wasn't to say that I thought Carnell Tate couldn't be really, really good at the next level. It's just, it's harder for me to know what I'm looking at when he just had to run down the field, and very rarely did he get anything close to the attention that Jeremiah Smith got.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, he didn't have, it's one playoff game, but right. he didn't really excel big time against Miami. Not the end of the world, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I don't get overly worked up over a lot of the combine testing times and whatnot, because for me, and just over the years covering that event and talking to decision makers and whatnot, it all comes back to the tape. His Ohio State tape's pretty darn good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But that's the thing. They've had, this is like 10 receivers over the last 6 years that have all had amazing tape. And I know there's some, you can find bad plays. He alligator-armed one ball in that playoff loss that they needed.
Right.
And so that got displayed, and it's like, oh, you really want to take him number 6 overall? I'm like, I'm sure you could find Jamar Chase alligator-arming one ball that was thrown that would have gotten him killed.
Right.
That doesn't make me think the guy can't play wide receiver at a high level. The question is number 6 overall. I mean, when we are talking that high up in the draft, we all want perfect prospects. And in this draft, that's one thing we've kind of been told about this draft compared to other drafts is you don't have the perfect offensive lineman. You don't have the Joe Alt.
Right.
You don't have the perfect, and I know people will eye roll, Trevor Lawrence, right? Even though he turned out not to be that perfect guy, but just the Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence in terms of a prospect. What people are saying is the best prospect, and now I've heard Todd McShay say it. I've heard Daniel Jeremiah say it. What I've heard the most is that the top prospect in this draft is Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. That's who seems to be coming up the most. Well, but the Browns are in no position to take a running back at number 6 overall.
No, and they don't. They just drafted 2 running backs last year too. So no, they're not. I'm gonna be consistent with this. I think the smart move at 6 is left tackle.
I think that's where they're going to.
I think that's the smart move. If the Browns, they had more on the offensive side of the ball, Anthony, and they had less needs, I'd be open to Tate at 6. I just don't know that the Browns can do it, which is their luck. Look, it's their luck. But, I keep going back to the basics. And the basics here are, okay, you take Tate, then you're obviously then assuming, and I'm going by that model. Let's say the Browns take Tate at 6, okay? Then you better find your left tackle at 24. And then your quarterback, if you're drafting him, you're probably going to do that in the middle rounds, which means you're throwing something against the wall, hoping it sticks. Maybe it's Drew Aller, someone like that. I think you got to draft at least 2 offensive linemen this year. A minimum of 2. Now you're down to 9 picks. 2 of them have to be offensive linemen.
Well, down to 8 after they trade for Anthony Richardson.
Well,
according to Zach, if you're just joining us, Zach says that's the next move for the Browns, trading for Anthony Richardson and quarterback competition with Shador Sanders.
And Deshaun Watson.
And which, by the way, I said Shador can win that.
Yes, he can. But yeah, I'm just trying to, in my head right now, with the 9 picks they have, kind of like divide up, okay, here's where they need to spend those picks on. But I just feel like Tate at 6 is more a luxury pick for the Browns. And I know that sounds ridiculous because they do need a number 1 wide receiver. But I think right now they need to prioritize the trenches. They got to win in the trenches first before you start worrying about the number 1 wide receiver on the roster. They're just not there yet. Like, I wish that wasn't the case because I would love Tate at 6. I would. I just think when I'm looking at from a team building perspective right now or in a roster build perspective, I don't know that they can afford to do that. They get too many holes.
All right, let's go to the phones. 216-474-0092. What would you do now? Are things kind of getting clarified for Browns fans about what they should do with that coveted number 6 overall pick in the draft? Eddie in Westlake. Go ahead, Eddie. Makes his triumphant return to the show. How are you?
Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
What's up?
Hey, you know what? I don't want anything to do with any of these linemen. Guys, it would be great to take a left tackle in a traditional year where you might have a stellar 1 or 2 left tackles, but I don't want to take another right tackle. All these guys that are the top tackles, the Miami kid, they're great. The Miami kid is a mauler. The kid from Utah, Fano, they're
so
right
what's
tackles.
the problem?
So I mean, you just traded a pick and gave $63 million to a right tackle. I mean, you can only play one of them at a time. I don't know, but at the end of the day, I want the Browns to take best player available, and if one of those defensive players, if they're all gone, the defensive players are all gone, then I want them to take the best wide receiver. If that's Tate, if that's Tyson, whoever that might be, that's the route I want them to go. Am I saying that they don't need to address offensive line? No, I'm not. But I'm saying the guys that are considered the best left tackles, like the Georgia kid and the other Utah kid, they're left tackles. And you get them at 24. You can get them later in the draft. Those are the true left tackles. These guys at the top are right tackles. They all are. And I know people say they're interchangeable and everything, but you just traded for that guy. You didn't trade for him and give him an extension for him not to play. Now he might play guard or tackle, but I believe that he's going to play tackle, and I believe they're going to have one of these kids. They're either going to sign Tevin Jenkins back or one of those young kids like Whippler or the Michigan kid. They're going to have to start at guard, and hopefully Batonio comes back for the other interior guard.
So what are you doing at number 6?
At number 6, I'm taking best player available. If that's Caleb Downs, if that's one of them defensive ends, and if that's Carnell Tate, I mean, whatever the case may be, however the board shakes out, I'm taking best player. If both of the defensive ends are gone, which is probably what's going to happen, then you're looking at Downs or Carnell Tate. It's just whoever's higher on your board. I'm not going to fault them for either one.
You wouldn't take Jeremiah Love, though, would you?
No, 100%.
Because he's considered the best. I mean, Todd McShay said, Eddie. Todd McShay said he is the best player available in terms of a prospect.
Yeah, I'm 100% not doing that. I hear what they're saying, but I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. But I'm also not just reaching for this need. You say you got this need. Andrew Berry is going to maneuver like Andrew Berry is maneuvering. We got 15 fifth-round picks, so he's using them, wisely. You know what I mean? And so they're going to make other linemen trade. And then maybe they sign the Green Bay. I truly believe that Andrew Berry is going to either get the Green Bay left tackle or he's going to get the Ravens center. I believe he's going to get one of those two guys. And then at that point, then you're teams are guessing at what you can do, because they don't know what you can do. He probably want to trade down and get another first-round pick. And I'm okay with that too. If you're able to accomplish getting one of those two top offensive linemen in free agency, then hey, do what you do.
Eddie, I appreciate the phone call. Didn't even get in a screaming match this time around.
So what's the point?
You're not getting.
What's the point?
If you're not going to get in a screaming match.
Oh, you wanted the screaming match.
What's the point?
You're not going to get a 27 first rounder this year. I would be surprised if Barry could pull that off with a trade down. I think that's something that's kind of.
I feel like that'd be a miracle.
Yeah, I do too. Also, too, you don't have the second pick in the draft to really, I think, demand that.
Mm-hmm.
But just, I don't subscribe to Andrew Berry's theory that the tackles are interchangeable. I really don't. I think that the footwork and the techniques are different. And just because you play right tackle does not mean you can play left tackle and vice versa. But we have to keep in mind, as this process unfolds here, Anthony, that is an Andrew Berry philosophy. That's one of his core philosophies, is he believes the tackles are interchangeable.
I will say this too, because Eddie mentioned Tyler Linderbaum, and we had seen the report at the end of last week that the Ravens were willing to get him a contract that would set the market.
Right.
So
make him highest paid center in the league.
And now that you just committed, I know it's 40-some million in new money, but 20 plus a year for
a right tackle,
a 30-year-old right tackle / right guard or whatever. It's hard for me to see them going north of what the Ravens just offered Linderbaum. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense, because while the salary cap is a myth in a lot of respects, when you're you have
to have some responsibility.
Right. You can't go completely bananas when it comes to spending. And maybe that's what Barry was talking about.
Well, they said he's looking for $25 million a year. I think Albert Breer was the one that affixed that number to the Ravens free agent.
All I know is that we're a day after the Combine. They've already made a trade, and Andrew Berry was totally sandbagging. We're not going to be real active in free agency this year. They're going to be very active. It's going to be a very busy month for the Cleveland Browns.
I think so, especially if we get a bombshell over the next week or so that you're adding Anthony Richardson.
I was going to say, is Anthony Richardson a bombshell for you?
I think it is, just because it's a quarterback. It's a quarterback with...
For a 5, is that really a bombshell trade if they ultimately send a 5 to Indy for him?
Okay, so when you put it like that, you're right. That's not much at all. You're trading a 5th-round pick, and unlike the 5th-round pick they just traded today, you're not signing him to a contract.
You're
right
legit
away.
Doing what you do in the draft anyway, and that's throwing something against the wall for a mid-round pick quarterback.
But you know how that is. Anytime you bring in a quarterback who has a reputation, he was somebody who started games, and he's young. Right. He's younger than Shador. Yeah. So he was a total project coming in, and now, just kind of examining Richardson, there's some traits in there that you'll fall in love with.
You know what? Here's the question we should be asking. How confident are you with the staff that Todd Monken has assembled here, the offensive staff? How confident are you that Todd Monken and his staff can fix these quarterbacks? Whether it's Anthony Richardson, whether it's Shador Sanders, whether it's Deshaun Watson, or anyone else they bring in. How confident are you they can fix these guys? I don't know. I wish I could answer that question.
It's a great
right
question, Daryl, because if it would have been anybody but Lamar that he had been working with, and I know his backups, played too because Lamar missed games, but we're talking about developing starting quarterbacks.
Right.
And it's tough. How much credit does he get for Lamar? Lamar was an MVP before Todd Monken ever got to him.
You're talking about the Daniel Joneses of the world and the Jared Goffs and the Sam Darnolds, right? These Justin Fields, these reclamation projects out there, okay? And we know the NFL is a copycat league, and the Browns might be, and it's just the position they're in. They're looking for their reclamation project. If they can't find it in the draft, well, yeah, you have to have coaching to fix the quarterback. So, how confident are you these guys can actually fix a quarterback?
Obviously, Todd Monken, the resume is the resume. There's also a bunch of guys who have good resumes as offensive coordinators before they become head coaches and then can't do it at all, and then the offenses actually get worse.
Right.
We've had that with Kevin Stefanski at times. It's and there was mixed nuts. It was up and down, obviously, a bit of a roller coaster.
Freddie Kitchens turned 8 games of an offensive coordinator and a head coaching job, and that was a disaster for a year.
Yeah, but I did ask the question,
But that 2019 offense, Anthony, put up numbers.
Yeah.
Did put up numbers. It is one of those years they averaged over 20 points per game. They had a couple 1,000-yard players there.
Well, hey, if you are that big of a believer in Todd Monken and what he can do, then bringing in somebody like Anthony Richardson with that arm, with that athleticism, and it's not going to cost you what Malik Willis was going to cost you, that's what you'd be banking on. That you could take those A-plus traits, which Anthony Richardson absolutely has, and then mold that into something, because he so far, early stage of his career, looked like he did not belong on a football field.
You just cannot pick up that fifth-year option for him when you trade for him. You can't do it.
All right, 216-474-0092. We'll take some calls on that. And our young John Colavita, seldomly heard today, our new producer, he did what you guys told him to. He went to a Cleveland landmark, and he had a $28 sandwich. What's the verdict from somebody that's used to Philadelphia and their hoagies over there? We'll get his thoughts next here on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
Brad Evans here to help you beat the Bulls in Westwood One Sports.
fees. For well-qualified customers plus tax and $35 device connection charge. Credits end and balance due if you pay off early or cancel. Contact us. $800 via virtual prepaid card. Card typically takes 15 days after rebate submission. No cash access and card expires in 6 months. Check out in 15 minutes per line. Visit T-Mobile.com.
There's Cavs and there's NBA news that happens while you're at work. Baskin and Phelps. Weekday mornings starting at 10.
Missed a moment in your show? Use the rewind feature on the Odyssey app, powered by Integrated Restoration, your local experts in water, fire, and storm disaster restoration.
I always love when we get new employees, especially from out of town. We like to send them on their merry way to make sure that they're getting an authentic Cleveland experience. So we opened up the Coming In hotline last week.
On the Odyssey app, it's free. You got to favorite the station.
How many of those were actually playable? Because I think, people think this is just a big joke.
There's a lot of people that think they're funny. I got news flashes. Not funny.
I mean, we're trying to do a serious talk show, and everybody just wants to be gags and shenanigans. I don't know what it is about this show. So I feel bad to put Owen through that. But all we wanted to do was, and we bring in
you
young
don't.
John.
Stop. You do not feel bad one iota. I've known you for almost 30 years. You don't feel bad for Owen.
Yeah, this is what happens. And look, we've had to indoctrinate John as best we can. We told him about our pre-show invocation.
We do have one, yes.
Where we all come in and...
I gave it Friday.
Yeah, you did. Daryl gave a speech. He blessed the show, which was important. John, I think you didn't understand that's what we do here. We're a very, very spiritual show, and we've been that way for years. So John was a part of that. So where did we end up sending him? What was the one thing I think that came up the most with the fans where he had to go to experience Cleveland? And it was...
Slimans.
Now... You're from Philly. What is Philly known for?
The cheesesteak.
Do you get annoyed that anytime they show Philly in a national televised game, they go right to that well? Just like here we go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There, it's always that. Does that bother you?
No.
In Baltimore, what is it? The crab cakes.
Right.
Every single time.
Which, by the way, are delicious.
It's either the cheesesteak or the crab fries, and Chickies and Pete's crab fries are the best thing I've ever had in my life.
So I didn't even know. That's never a part of... Anytime I'm watching Philly, they don't say the crab fries.
Yeah,
Really?
never knew that.
Okay.
That's probably what you have to do instead of the stupid cheesesteak.
Every trip to Philly, I go over to Gino's.
Why do you go to Gino's?
I love this. Somebody's already got a protest.
You can't go to Gino's.
Let's
you have
focus
to go to...
this on Cleveland.
Okay.
So, but Slimans was awesome.
So, okay. Was there a line?
Yes, but I texted you the picture of the line, and it wasn't that long. It took me maybe 15 minutes to be in and out.
That's pretty good.
Date and time, please.
Noon on a Friday.
Okay.
I think 15 minutes is good.
That's pretty good, noon on a Friday, because a lot of people are, especially if they're coming in town for a 3-day weekend and things like that, that's noon on a Friday is when they're going.
Yeah, and I don't even like corned beef that much. Last time I had corned beef was like St. Patty's Day in like 2011. And I will say, hands down, that was the best corned beef I've ever had. And Lima told me that I wasn't going to be able to finish it in one sitting. I scarfed that whole thing down.
You did?
That was elite.
You did not walk away with lunch and dinner?
No, I had to keep eating. And I also got coleslaw. And also, first of all, the pickle, best pickle I've ever had in my life.
Amazing. Absolutely. And it was pricey, right? Like you get what you pay for there.
Oh, you definitely
You're getting
did.
what, a pound of meat?
And you went to the one on St. Clair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that's the one I sent him to.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's one in Independence, I believe. It's not the same, right? You got to go to the original.
I want you to get the feel because in that line, regardless,
eating the food's one thing, but you gotta take the whole thing.
You got to go there.
In?
No, I carried it. I took it home.
Carry out.
Well, you've got to see when you look around you get a Cleveland feel. And you get less and less of these in every city, right? Like, I met Sokolowski's. He'll never get to experience Sokolowski's in the cafeteria.
That's standing in line for maybe an hour, depending on the time of day you go, but you hit the bar before you go.
It's incredible. And so that's, as those fall by the wayside over time, that's where something like Slimans, it's even more important that you cherish that you get a chance to have that experience. So I'm glad you had a good experience in that you got to take part in something that was so authentically Cleveland. And you would tell, like, if your parents came in town or if you had a friend, you would definitely direct them there.
Oh, my dad's coming up in a couple of weeks. we're going there.
All right.
100%.
So should we ask fans what's next?
Yeah, I think, well, especially with your dad coming in town, there's one Cleveland landmark you can get food there too.
The free stamp?
Exactly. Walnut Wednesdays, they're coming up. Mm-hmm. No, you got to get over to the West Side Market. You got to go do that whole thing as well.
Yep.
There's so many different options to get little this and that's to eat while you're eating.
And they're in the middle of their renovation, right?
They just opened up like the new fruit mall or whatever they call that area where they sell the fruits.
I just got a text. Tell that kid to only go to St. Clair. Yes, we did that. That's exactly what we did.
Yeah, well,
I dropped the pin on his phone and everything.
It's a shame. When I first moved here, I'm from Oklahoma, right? Barbecue. Everybody was like, you got to go to Hot Sauce Williams. I got to do it. It was amazing. It's not open anymore, but it was a great time. There's some other places around.
I forgot that's run its course as well. So you know what? We'll do this over the course of the next week. Where can we send them next? And we got to start plotting this out. If somebody's our video guy, can we do a little Indiana Jones and navigating John on the map to different parts of Cleveland? I think that would be cool.
We could do that. I'll open up the coming in hotline again. We'll get some more suggestions.
We have people calling in now.
Yeah, just take them cold.
Okay, line 2. Where should John go?
You're on the air.
Hey, it's Anthony.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Hey, just FYI, the corned beef at Slyman's and Independence is licensed from the Slyman's group to the Panini group. So it's not Freddie Slyman's corned beef. Just FYI. Oh, it is, but it's
I
not
have a licensed foot from the WWE.
All right. That is getting into nitty-gritty corned beef.
It's in the weeds.
Do we need to fact check that
That's
at all?
That's probably why when we talked about it before we started this segment, did we bring up where we're at, where we get it from? It's probably why we did all that.
Yeah, probably not. All right, where should John go next? Line 3. Who is this?
Hey, it's Chris from Chicago.
So somebody from Chicago, who
go.
better?
To tell you where to eat in Cleveland.
Eat at the Bean.
Well, I grew up there, Daryl. Come on now. My dad took me to Slyman's in 1980. I thought he was ahead of the curve. But a couple things. There was a Chickies and Pizza at Cedar Point for a while, and they had those craft fries were really good. I don't think it's still there, number one. And then number 2, I bet it was quiet. By the way, I'm a big Slyman's guy. I bet it was quiet on Friday because it's Lent. Who's getting the sliced
Oh, that's a good
That's
point.
true, yeah.
Right?
Should have went to. Got to get him to a fish fry now, right? On a Friday.
Pierogies on a Friday.
Yes. Anyway, that's all I got.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, I'd be up for some pierogies. I love pierogies.
All right.
Now, this is how I grew up. I don't know if it's sacrilege here. Is it sacrilege to put ketchup on pierogies?
Yeah, probably.
I don't do it.
Yeah.
I don't do it.
Thinking?
I've seen people try all sorts of things.
My grandma made pierogies from scratch for the church.
You can do sour cream.
Yes, sour cream is acceptable.
Cream.
Yeah, I'm not a huge sour cream person either.
Okay, applesauce I love. I would do applesauce.
But I do what the natives tell me to do. If the natives are doing it, even if it's something I'm not into, I'll do it. Yes. If they tell me to jump over the cliff, I'll do it if they say that's the experience.
Oh, nice. That's all it takes.
All right, what should John do next?
Go to Vincenzo's Pizza.
Vincenzo's?
Vincenzo's.
Well, the Vincenzo's down here is no longer here. Downtown, right?
Come on, man. I did not know that.
Yeah, where are you calling from?
Menor.
Yeah, it's no longer used to be, pizza by the slice. You could get it right down here. It's now Geraci's.
It's not here. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this. Go to the train wreck on this show
We
at
tried.
the end of it. Yeah.
We tried.
We tried. You know what? We'll send you a list.
Please do.
We'll give you, instead of a to-do list, it'll be a to-eat list.
Yeah. Here's a bunch of
other things to do than just
defunct
eat.
things that no longer that you could do.
Greenhouse Town.
Watch the next live taping of Big Chuck and Lil Jon.
And we'll also make sure that they're still open as well.
Okay, I hope so.
Coming up next, Baskin and Phelps, they will have reaction to the big trade that went down. Kenny should be back tomorrow. Thank you, Daryl, for the last 2 shows filling in. And for Owen and John. And Jeff Thomas doing the updates. We'll see you tomorrow here on Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan. What could happen next? Stay tuned to 92.3 The Fan.
It's not the greatest ever, but that's okay, because I'm on to my next endeavor. I'd like to give a shout out to the Zach Gelb Show on